Hello there, GED Math students, or any math student that is watching this video. In this video, I am going to go over the questions in the sample GED practice math test that you can download on the home page of my YouTube channel. Simply under Weiss Videos, click on the link there and you can download this PDF version and print it out. I recommend that you have that in front of you while you're watching these videos. And I strongly recommend that you actually do the test first before watching these videos. I'm really excited to help you pass the GED math test. So with all that being said, let's jump into this. Question number 1. A group of 200 high school students chose their favorite sport. The circle graph shows the results. If every student picked one of the sports shown, how many did not choose football as their favorite? Highlight the final question. And note it's asking how many did not choose football as their favorite sport. Now there's 200 high school students, so now I know what my answer choices represent. For example, answer choice A represents the fact that 42 students out of 200 did not choose football as their favorite sport, and so on. So we're going to need the circle graph to help us answer this question. So let's look at the circle graph so we know what it represents. It's telling us that 33% of the students chose soccer as their favorite, 10% chose tennis, 15% chose volleyball, and 42% chose football. Now, note that these are percentages here, and our answer choices are not percentages. They're representing different things. The goal in this question is to figure out the total number of students out of 200 who did not choose football as their favorite sport. So they chose something other than football. They chose soccer, tennis, or volleyball. So let's highlight that piece of the circle graph. And you should notice that when I highlight all this, it covers more than half of the circle. For example, if this were a pizza and you ate the part highlighted in yellow, you ate more than half. So that's telling me that more than half of the students chose something other than football. So now I can figure out my answer choice without using a lot of mathematics. I know that my answer choice has to be more than half of the 200 students. So what's half of 200? Well, just divide by 2. Half of 200 is 100. And therefore my answer choice has to be greater than 100. So it has to be D. And I can eliminate A, B, and C. Now, if that didn't make sense to you, let me go through the mathematical way of doing this so you have another way of understanding this. Again, we know our answer choice is D, but let's get that exactly. So let's just simply add up the total number of percentages here, or students that did not choose football. They chose soccer, tennis, or volleyball. So 33% chose soccer, 10% chose tennis, 15% chose volleyball. Let's total those up. 33% plus 10% is 43%, plus 15% is 58%. So 58% of the students chose something other than football as their favorite sport. So in my mind, I'm thinking 58% of the students, 58% of the total students is 200. Usually in mathematics, of in these types of problems turns into a multiplication sign. So I'm just going to go 58%, turn this into a times sign, 200. You can just punch this in on your calculator. 58. Your percentage button is right here above this parenthesis. To access this, just hit on this, or just push the second button. Once you hit the second button, all the symbols in green above the buttons are in play. Now I'll hit this. You have 58% times 200. Hit enter, and you get 116. Let's move to question number 2. Question 2. A bakery display contains 3 chocolate muffins, 7 blueberry muffins, 6 banana muffins, and 8 apple muffins. If you randomly select one muffin without looking, what is the probability you select a banana muffin? Let's highlight this question, final question. What's the probability you select a banana muffin? Down here in green, I have an explanation of what probability is. I'm not going to go over all these bullet points. You can read them. But the general definition of probability is how likely something will happen. Here is the formula, so to say, of probability. Successful outcomes divided by the total number of possible outcomes. I like to do the denominator or the bottom part first, total number of possible outcomes down here. That simply means how many total muffins are there. So we have 3 chocolate, 7 blueberry, 6 banana, and 8 apple. Let's total those up. 3 plus 7 is 10, plus 6 is 16, plus 8 is 24. So the total number of possible outcomes, i.e. the total number of muffins, is 24. The number of successful outcomes represents the total number of banana muffins, because that's a successful outcome if I pick a banana muffin. And we have 6 banana muffins, so I put that on top. So there's a 6 out of 24 chance that I will get or choose one banana muffin. But I don't see that as my answer choice here, so I'm going to need to reduce this. Let me show you how to do that on the calculator, and then I will show you how to do that by hand. Simply punch in the fraction, so hit your fraction button here. Numerator, type in 6. Hit your down arrow. In the denominator, put in your 24. And simply hit enter after that. And it's 1 out of 4 chance that I pick a banana muffin that matches up with C. Now let's say on this problem you don't have a calculator. I'll show you how to simplify or reduce this fraction. Let me move this down. 6 out of 24. Actually, let me move this down as well. This fraction kind of is just hanging out there. Let me move that down. So we have 6 out of 24. These are both even numbers, 6 and 24. So that means I can just divide them both by 2. So let's do that. If I divide 6 divided by 2 is 3. I'm just taking half of 6 is 3. And I can also take half of 24, which is 12. So what I did is just divided the numerator and the denominator, each one by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Now I need to simplify this. The top number is odd, the bottom number is even, so I'm just going to rewrite these. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, 3, that's the same as 1 times 3. And 12, that's the same as 3 times 4. I have a common factor of 3. I can cancel those out, and I'm left with 1/4. So that's one way to go about it, and again, that matches up with C. Let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, your friends spent $42, $79, and $53 respectively. Which expression below shows the average amount of money your friend spent for these days. So I'm looking for an expression that gives me the average amount of money. Now, down here in green, I have some information about average. You can read through this. Let me just go over this top part so you understand the meaning of average. Average is a number that tells you what's typical or normal for a group of numbers, and this shows you how it works. And I have the formula up here as well, which I believe you have on your formula sheet when you take the test. So this says average, and there's another word here, mean. If you see this word, these two mean the same thing. They're synonyms of each other. So the formula is you take the sum of all the numbers, that's at the top, divided by how many numbers there are. Well, based on this formula, you should be able to pick your answer choice right off the bat. Can you see which one it's going to be? Hopefully you can see your answer choice is D, because D is really the only one that has an expression that's summing numbers. Sum means to add. And when you sum these numbers, it has to happen at the top according to the formula. And if you look at A, it's multiplying the number, so A is gone. And B and C don't contain any addition in the numerator. Only D does. So quickly, hopefully you can see your answer is D. Let's just go through this quickly and make sure we got it right. The sum of all the numbers, so I'm going to add up all the numbers. We have 42, 79, 53. So we'll sum those. Divided by how many numbers there are. Well, there's a total of 3 numbers. 1, 2, 3. And that matches up with D. Let's move on to question number 4. Question 4 says, evaluate 2/3 divided by 1/5. And for this particular type of problem, you will not have access to a calculator. Down at the bottom, I indicate what evaluate signifies. It just means to do the math or to get the number. So let's go ahead and do this. Two-thirds divided by 1/5. Let's evaluate or do the math. Now, I learned a little rhyme in elementary school that really helped me remember how to do division with fractions, and it goes like this. When you divide fractions, don't be shy. Flip the second fraction and turn division to multiply. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring down my 2/3. Just leave that the same. Now, when you divide, don't be shy. Flip the second fraction. I flipped it. And turn division to multiply. And if you can remember that rhyme, it'll help you do this problem. And now I just go ahead and figure this out. I evaluate. I've turned this into a multiplication problem, and you should see I flipped the second fraction, put the 5 on top and the 1 on bottom. Let's multiply this out. And when you multiply fractions, you just multiply top times top and bottom times bottom. So the top numbers are 2 and 5, so 2 times 5. On the bottom is 3 and 1, so let's multiply 3 times 1. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 1 is 3. This matches up with the answer choice D. Let's move on to question number 5. Question 5 says, what is the distance in miles between point H and point L on the number line? If you can remember that distance is always positive, you can quickly eliminate two choices, A and B, because these answer choices are negative and distance is always positive. And then you have a 50-50 chance of guessing if you're running out of time. Now, with that being said, kind of analyze this a little bit deeper. I'm going to fill in some numbers here. It looks like we're counting by two zeros here, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So this will have to be a 1, 3, 5, and 7. I'm just filling these in. You don't have to. It makes sense now. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. They just left out some numbers. Anything to the left of 0 is negative, so this would be -1, then -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. Now, I'm starting at point H, and I'm going to point L. Let's pretend point H is my house. Point L is the library, and each time I make a jump, it's considered 1 mile. So I'm going to start here at my house. Here. I'm going to jump 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles. So that's my answer, 6. Let's go to the next question. Question number 6. What is the distance in miles between point L and point H on the number line? Again, you can eliminate two answer choices immediately, A and B. This seems exactly the same as the prior problem, except now I'm going from point L over to point H. I'm walking from the library to my house now. Now think about this in terms of the real world. If you walk from your house to the library and then back from the library to the house, it's the same distance. It doesn't matter if you go left or right or if you go backwards or forward. Your answer will be positive. So again, this is also going to be C. I'm going from the library to the house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 miles. Again, if you walk to the left, it's positive. If you walk to the right, it's positive. If you walk backwards, it's positive. If you walk forward, it's positive in terms of distance. Let's move to the next question. Question number 7. Which expression represents the distance from point H to point L on the number line? Before I jump into this, let's figure out the distance from point H to point L. I'll start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 9 units from point H to point L. I'll put that up here. So my answer has to be a positive 9. So whichever one of these answers gives me out a positive 9 will be my answer. So let's see which answer choice gives me a positive 9. I'm not going to start with A or B because they have these funny symbols in here and they're more complicated to figure out. So let's just start with C. -4 plus 5. Does that give me out a positive 9? Well, hopefully you know that -4 plus 5 is 1. So C cannot be my answer. Now, how did I get that? Well, here's one way to do it. This means you can start at -4 right here. Plus means move to the right 5 units. So from here, I'll move to the right 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I end up at 1 right here. But again, we need to get a 9. So let's move to answer choice D. -4 minus 5. Hopefully you know that's -9. That's close, but I need to get out a positive 9. So D cannot be my answer. Now, at this point, if you're running out of time, you can guess A or B. You have a better chance of guessing. How did I get -9? Here's one way to do it. You can start at -4 right here. Subtract right here means move to the left on the number line, 5 units. So I'll move to the left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you can see that's negative 9. Now we need to decide if it's A or B. Hopefully you can see that my answer choice has to be B, but let me explain. Let's start with A. We've already done negative 4 plus 5 right here. We know that's 1. Negative 4 plus 5 over here is 1. But then I have these funny symbols here. These funny symbols just tells us that anything that's inside the funny symbols will turn to positive. Well, 1 is already positive, so it'll stay positive. So really what this means is the absolute value of 1, it's just 1. It stays positive. Now, let's look at this one. And again, we need to get out a 9. This gave us a 1, so A is gone. It's got to be B. But let me explain. Negative 4 minus 5, we already did that. That's negative 9 from right here. So this piece here is negative 9. These symbols turn everything that's inside to a positive. So since this is a negative, it'll turn to positive. So just a quick review. If you have something like this with these funny symbols, they're called absolute values. This is just a quick teaching note. Let's say you have the absolute value of 2. That's 2. Let's say you have the absolute value of negative 2. That's also 2. It always yields out a positive result. Let's move on to question 8. Question 8. What is the distance in miles from 0 to A on the number line? From 0 to A. I'll fill in my numbers here. Hopefully you can see that this distance is 6.5. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just halfway here. You should see that this point is halfway between negative 6 and negative 7. So the distance is 6.5, which matches up with C. Now, this is a teaching moment here. A lot of students ask me why it's not negative 6.5. The answer. Because the coordinate of this point, notice I said coordinate, is negative 6.5. But distance is always positive, as I stated in the prior problems. If this question said what is the coordinate this was canceled out. What is the coordinate of point A? Let's just say it said that. What is the coordinate of point A? Then in fact your answer would be B. So just keep those two concepts separate so you have a clear understanding. Question 9. Emily completes a puzzle every 8 minutes. Lucas completes the same puzzle every 12 minutes. They both start solving puzzles at the same time. How many minutes will pass before Emily and Lucas finish a puzzle at the same time? In other words, will they have completed a puzzle at the same time at 4 minutes or at 20 minutes and so on? Let's highlight some important information. Emily completes a puzzle every 8 minutes. Lucas completes a puzzle every 12 minutes. Now, I kind of started setting up the problem here. And I want you to think of each person's puzzle time completion as a list of numbers. So let's start with Emily. So she starts and she completes a puzzle every 8 minutes. So the first time she completes a puzzle, 8 minutes have passed. Then she starts over and completes another puzzle. What's the total time passed now? Well, that would be 16 minutes. The total time just keeps going up by 8. So the first time she completes a puzzle, 8 minutes. Then she starts over and begins another puzzle. Another 8 minutes pass. So that's a total of 16 minutes. And I just keep adding 8 each time. So 16 plus 8 is 24 minutes. And another 8, that's 32 minutes. I just keep going. Let's use the same thinking to make a list of minutes for Lucas. Lucas completes a puzzle every 12 minutes. He's a little bit slower. So we're going to generate a list for Lucas. So the first time he completes the puzzle, 12 minutes have passed. Then he starts over and he completes another puzzle. So how much total time has passed now? It's another 12 minutes. So 12 plus 12 is 24. And I just keep adding 12 each time. 24 plus 12 is 36. I'll do it one more time. 36 plus 12 is 48. You can keep going if you need to. Now we are looking for the first time that the same number appears on the list. Hopefully you can see that's 24. Right here. In other words, there's an 8 on the top, but there's not an 8 on the bottom. There's a 16 on the top, but not on the bottom. However, there's a 24 on the top list and a 24 on the bottom list. So that indicates that at 24 minutes, both finished a puzzle at the same time. And my answer is C. Question number 10. What is the greatest common factor needed to simplify the fraction 36 over 48 to its lowest terms? No calculator on this one. I have some notes down here. Factors are numbers that can be added repeatedly to make another number. So what I'm going to do here is I have 36 and 48. I'm going to see which one of my answer choices, when I add them repeatedly, give me both 36 and 48. So let's start with the 36, which is right here. And we're being asked about the greatest common factor. I'm going to start with my answer choices and use the greatest number, which is 16. We'll start here. And I'm just going to add 16 repeatedly to see if I can get a 36. So let's just start over here. I'll do 16. Then I'll just add it repeatedly. 16 plus 16, that's 32. And let's add another 16. If I add 16 plus 16 plus 16, I get 48. And as you can see, it's impossible to add 16 repeatedly to get the 36. So 16 cannot be my answer. And I'll just move on to the next one. Let's try 12. I'm going to add 12 repeatedly and see if I can get a 36. And if I do, then I'll do the same process and see if I can get a 48. So let's start with 12 plus 12. That's 24. I'll add another 12. 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 36. And look at that. If I add 12 repeatedly 3 times, I get a 36. So 12 is a possibility. Now I'm going to just keep adding it and see if I can get a 48. So let's just start over, just to make sure you're clear on this. Right here. So again, I started with 12, and I added 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. I added another 12. 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 36. That shows up on the top number here. Then I add 12 again. And 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 48, which is my bottom number here. So 12 is the greatest common factor, which would be C. In other words, if I add 12 repeatedly, I can get out a 36 right here, because 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 36. And if I keep continuing that process, I can also add 12 repeatedly to get 48, because 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12 gives us the 48 right here. So our greatest common factor is 12, and C is our answer. Just a quick point before I move on to the next question. Answer choice B is 6, and if you do this process here, you will see that 6 is actually a common factor of 36 and 48, and so is 2. However, they're asking for the greatest common factor, and that's why the answer is 12. And again, 16 doesn't work. It's not a common factor because it's impossible to add 16 repeatedly to get the 36. Question 11, 3.25 times 2.8, no calculator. Let's rewrite that down here. I'm going to ballpark this one, and I'm going to put dollar signs in front of these numbers. So let's pretend this is $3.25. That's really close to $3 times 2.8. We can tack on a 0 at the end here. It doesn't change anything. $2.80 is really close to $3 as well. 3 times 3 equals 9. The answer choice closest to 9 is D, and you move on. However, you might want to know how to do this to get the exact answer, so I will show you. I will rewrite this as follows. 3.25 times 2.8. So I'll start with the 8 here. 8 times 5 is 40. I put down my 0 and carry my 4. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. I put down my 0, carry my 2. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 2 is 26. Now I'm going to shift over to the 2. 2 times 5 is 10. I put down my 0, and I carry my 1. If you notice, I shifted over a space here. Now I'm going to go 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to add this up here. Bring down my 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 5 is 11. Put down my 1 here and carry a 1 here. 6 plus 2 is 8, plus this one is 9. Now I need to get my decimal here in the right place. So I go back to my original problem. Let's look at the 3.25. How many numbers are to the right of this decimal point or behind the decimal point? Well, there's 1, 2. Now what about this number 2.8? How many numbers are to the right of this decimal or behind the decimal? There's 1. So let's count that up just to be sure we understand. So here there's 2 numbers to the right of this decimal, the 2 and the 5. And here there's 1 number to the right of the decimal, the 8. So that's a total of 3 numbers. 1, 2, 3, or I just add these up, that's 3. And now I'm going to move the decimal here in my answer 3 spaces to the left. Now when no decimal is shown, it's at the end of the number. So I'll just move this 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And my decimal is now here. It's no longer here. Therefore, my final answer is 9.100. I don't need to show these zeros. This just equals 9.1, which matches up with D. Question 12. A dog Rufus is tied to the side of a house by an 8-foot rope as shown in the diagram. What is the total area in square feet that Rufus has to run in? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. So we are dealing with area here, and the tricky part about this problem is you need to figure out what type of shape we're dealing with. Hopefully you know that when a dog's attached to a rope and it runs around, it forms a circle. So with that being said, we're going to need to find the formula for the area of a circle, which is as follows. And you don't need to memorize this. This will be on your formula sheet when you take the math test. Area of a circle equals pi r squared. There's a times sign here, it's not showing, so pi times the radius squared. But before I jump into this problem, let's go over a couple things here. The rope is attached. It appears to be right at the center of the house because here's the rope, it's 10 feet here, it's 10 feet here, and the rope is 8 feet. Now, it's kind of important to notice in this problem that the center of the rope to the edge of the house, that length is greater than the rope itself, which makes this problem much easier. Because if the rope were longer than 10 feet, then the dog could run around the corner of the house like this, but we don't have to worry about that. So since we don't have to worry about that, in reality, these 10 feet right here are not really going to come into play in this problem. So let's see what's going on here. The dog can run around in a circle like so. This is not the best circle. But this part here is blocked off by the house, so we can just get rid of this. And you should see he can run in this area right here. From here over to here, which is a half circle. So what I need to do is take my formula for the area of the circle and multiply it by 1/2. Because this formula gives me the area of a whole circle, I'm only concerned about the area of a half circle. So I'll multiply by 1/2. Let's go ahead and do this now. So the area equals pi, just bring the pi down, bring your times sign down, and the radius is always the distance from the center of the circle to the edge of this circle right here. So in this case, it's just the length of the rope. So I'll replace the radius here with 8. I'll bring down my square sign, and then I'll multiply this by 1/2. Now I can punch this whole thing here into the calculator. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'll be done. So pi is right here times let me go back one. I hit the plus sign. Eight squared, 8. Squared is right here. Times 1/2. Times, I'm just going to use my fraction button here. Just hit this. And we'll put the 1 here, hit your down arrow, 2, and just hit enter. And then you get this funny looking answer, 32 pi. That doesn't show up here. Don't get nervous when that happens. If you see something like this come up, just hit your toggle button right here. Right here, these 2 double arrows, hit that and it will change the 32 pi to a number you recognize. There we go, it changed it to about 100. So this is 100.53. It says round to the nearest whole number. So my answer will be 100, and that goes with C. Question 13. You are installing new carpet in your rectangular bedroom. The bedroom has an area of 288 square feet. If the length of the bedroom is 18 feet, what is the perimeter in feet? This is a great time to highlight that final question. It's asking for the perimeter and feet. Now I know my answer choices represent perimeter. Let's draw a rectangle. Because it states here it's a rectangular bedroom. It says the bedroom has an area of 288 square feet. The area is the space inside. So this is 288. Space inside. The length of the bedroom is 18 feet. The length is the longer side of a rectangle. So I'll put the 18 here. You don't need to put in the feet here. If you accidentally put the 18 here, that's fine. Now, the question is, what is the perimeter? Perimeter is when you sum up the lengths of all the sides. And I'm missing some side lengths here. I do know that this is 18 feet, so this has to be 18 feet. Because it's a rectangle, so the opposite sides are the same length. Now I need to find the width here. Once I find this width, I can sum up the sides. Now before I find the width, I think it's good practice to do this with the majority of the problems. Look at your answer choices. Is there any answer choices at this point I can eliminate? You can see I can eliminate answer choice A. Because the perimeter is when I sum up all the sides. Hopefully you see that when I sum these all up, it has to be larger than 16. So 16, eliminate it. Then if you need to guess, you have a better chance of guessing. With that being said, let's go ahead now and finish this up. Let's find the width here. And we're dealing with rectangle and area here. So on your formula sheet, you'll need to find the area of a rectangle, which is as follows. Area equals length times width. And I just plug these numbers in. So the area is 288. Replace area with 288. So the length, which is 18. Times the width. I don't know what the width is, so I'll just call that W. So this W, just bring it down. Hopefully you know how to solve this type of equation. What it really means is I need to replace the W with some number, so when I multiply it by 18, I get 288. Well, this is an equation. To undo multiplication, you do division. So on the right-hand side of the equation here, the W is multiplied by 18. To undo multiplication, just divide by 18. And what you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other side. So I'll divide the left side by 18. And then the up off here, W, or the width, equals 288 divided by 18. I'll do this on the calculator. 288 divided by 18. It's 16. That's my width right here. So over here I'll put 16. Now if you were not reading the question, you might have circled 16 as your answer. That's a trap answer right there. Let's finish this up. So since this is 16, this has to be 16. And now the perimeter is when you sum up all the sides. So I'll just sum these up. 18 plus 16 plus 18 plus 16. I'll total those up on the calculator, and that will be the perimeter. So again, perimeter is the distance around the object. So 18, I'll start with this 18. 18, let me clear this out so it's easier to read. 18 plus 16 plus 18 plus 16, which is 68, which matches up with C. Question 14. The following data represents the daily high temperatures in degrees recorded in a certain city. Which of the following line plots, also known as a dot plot, correctly represents the data above? So let's just make sure we know how to read a line plot. This first line plot is telling us that 70 degrees was recorded in a certain city 1, 2, 3 times. And so on. The 71 degrees was recorded 0 times. The 72 degrees was recorded 2 times. The 73, 2 times. 74, 1 time. And the 75, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So based on that information, hopefully you can figure out the correct answer here. Let's just go back up to our data and start with the first number. If you wanted to, you could order these from smallest to largest. It does make it easier. But since there's not a lot of numbers, I'm just going to keep it as is. I'll start with my 73. That was recorded 1 time, 2 times. So I'll go over to 73 degrees here on each line plot and make sure each one has 73 degrees recorded 2 times. This one has it recorded 1 time, 2 times. So does this one, 1 time, 2 times. This one 1 time, 2 times, and same with this one. So I can't eliminate anything at this point. So we'll now move on to 75 degrees. That was recorded 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. So 75 degrees, 4 times. So let's go to 75 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, keep it. Let's go to 75 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, keep it. Let's go to 75 here. 1, 2, 3. Nope, it wasn't recorded enough, so C's gone. I can eliminate it. Let's go to D. 75. 1, 2, 3, 4, keep it. Now I'm down to 3 choices. Let's move on to 70 degrees. That occurs 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. So let's go to A. We're at 70 degrees. That was recorded 1, 2, 3 times. Keep it. Again, it was recorded 3 times up here. 1, 2, 3. Let's go to B. We're at 70 degrees. That was recorded 1, 2, 3, 4 times. That's too many times. B is gone. We've already eliminated C. Let's go to D. 70 degrees was recorded only 2 times. 1, 2. That's not enough. We can eliminate D. So everything's gone but A. The graph below models the height of an object. Use this graph for questions 15 through 18. Question 15. Approximately when in seconds does the object reach maximum height? In other words, does the object reach maximum height at 0 seconds, at 0.5 seconds, at 1.2 seconds, or at 30 seconds? Let's go over to the graph here. It starts right here. And I'm just going to read it from left to right. You should see that right here is the maximum. Maximum is really the highest point on the graph, which is right here. So when did that occur? In seconds. Well, my seconds are down here, right? So it occurred right about here, between 1 and 1.5 seconds. Well, which answer is between 1 and 1.5 seconds? Hopefully you see it's got to be C, because this point here is right between 1 and 1.5. I'd guess that to be 1.2 seconds. Hopefully that makes sense to you, and you can move on to the next question if you want to, but I want to explain one thing. Some students ask me this: why is the answer not 30? Because if you notice here, the maximum height is 30 here. So some students circled 30, but this is 30 feet. This is telling us here the maximum height of the object in feet, 30 feet. But again, this represents 30 seconds. They're asking when, at what time it reached the 30 feet. And that occurred right here again. at 1.2 seconds. So that's why my answer is C and not D. Again, let's refer to this graph for question 16. It says, when in seconds is the object at minimum height? This represents the lowest point on the graph, or points, I should say. So again, my answer choices are in seconds. Did the object reach minimum height, or was it at minimum height at 0 seconds and at 2.5 seconds, at 0.5 seconds and 1.2 seconds, at 1 second and 2 seconds, or at 3 seconds? Again, let's go over to our graph. The minimum is the lowest point on the graph. So that's here. It's the lowest point on the graph. I'm just going to go from left to right, maximum, and then there's another minimum. When in seconds did that occur? It occurred here, which is at 0 seconds. And it occurred here, which is at 2.5 seconds. So my answer choice is A. In other words, the object was at minimum height at 0 seconds and 2.5 seconds. Question 17, again referring to this graph. What is the difference in feet between the maximum and minimum height of the object? So for this particular problem, I need to find the maximum height and the minimum height of the object, and then I'm going to subtract those two numbers because difference implies subtract. So now we're looking at this part of the graph over here because these numbers represent the height. It says that right here. So I simply need to find the maximum, the minimum height, and subtract them. So let's do that. Let's start with the maximum height. That occurs, and we've done this, kind of done it. Part here, I'm going to go from left to right. The maximum height now, not time, but height is over here. It's 30 feet. That's the maximum right here. And what's the minimum height? Well, let's see. The minimum height is here, right? And here. It occurs at 2 times. What is that minimum height? Well, now I read this number over here. That's 5. So the minimum height is 5 feet. We subtract, because it's the difference between the two. And what's 30 feet minus 5 feet? That's 25 feet. Matches up with C. Question 18. What is the initial height in feet of the object? Initial height simply means the starting height or the height at time 0. So my answer choices have to be these numbers over here. What do you think the starting height of the object was? Well, it started right here. In other words, at time 0, the height was 5 feet. So the initial height is right here, 5 feet, which matches up with C. Question 19, refer to this coordinate grid here. And the question's here. We want to list the coordinates of points A, B, and C as ordered pairs. We have 2 big words here. Ordered pairs, and I put the definition down here. It has to do with location. So we're going to use ordered pairs to describe the location in the coordinate grid of point A, B, and C. And I recommend that you read this. Let's start with point A. Now, when you're using an ordered pair, you always start at the origin, right here at 0, 0. And that's where the x and y axes cross each other. And then your first number is always going to tell you how far to move left or right. So let's see, how many units do I move to the right? 1, 2, 3, which shows up right here, and that's on my x-axis. So I moved across 3 units to the right, so x is 3. Now, the second number tells us how far to move up or down. So how many units do I move up or down from here? I don't move at all, so I move up or down 0 units. That's my y value. So y equals 0. So again, I recommend you read this. So the x-coordinate is 3, the y-coordinate is 0, and we will write that as an ordered pair. 3, 0. So this describes the location of point A. Now let's do point B. Oop, I wanted to erase that. Go ahead and give point B a shot, which is right here. Hopefully you got -2, 4. Point B. Let's go through this. We start at the origin. The first number tells us how far to move left or right. So we move our left or right first. So we move left 1, 2 units. That's -2 because we moved to the left. So the x value is -2. And then from here we move up 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So the y value is +4 because we moved up, which shows up over here. So x is -2, 1, 2. Y equals 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the coordinate for point B. This is point A, point B, and then we got to do point C. Struggling with my eraser here. There we go. Point C is right here. So let's do this. We move to the left, starting here. 1, 2, 3. So that's -3. X is -3. Coordinate y would be from here down. We're going down now. 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So it's -4 because we moved down, which shows up here. So the coordinate of point C is -3, -4. So these are called ordered pairs here, and we use parentheses to represent them. I know I kind of spent a little bit of time explaining this. I could have done it quicker, but these concepts are confusing, so I hope that made sense to you. Let's move on. Question 20. What is the solution set for the equation below this equation? I'll do a little teaching here first, because you should notice in question A, the numbers here are enclosed by curly brackets. It says -1, 4. In the previous problem, question 19, we had numbers written like this, where they were enclosed by parentheses. When the numbers are enclosed with parentheses like this, it indicates an ordered pair, which indicates location in a coordinate grid. That's not the case here. These numbers are enclosed by curly brackets or braces, which implies a solution set. And what does that mean? Well, when it's written like this with the curly brackets, it's simply a collection of numbers. And in this case, it's a collection of x values because we're dealing with the variable x. So this really means, in this situation, that x equals -1 and x equals 4. Make sure you understand the difference between these two concepts. With that being said, let me jump into the problem. And I'm going to use the calculator to help us solve this one. So what this is asking us is what values can I plug in for x? So when I square x, multiply x by 3, subtract 6, I get out a negative 2. So based on that, I'm going to call this right-hand side my output. And I'm going to call the left-hand side of this equation my input. So in other words, if I input -1 for x here and here, and plug it in, do I get out a -2? And then I'd also have to check the 4. Then I'd have to plug in 4 for x here and here, do some operations, and get out a -2. Well, that's a little complicated. I can use my calculator to really help with this. So what I'm going to actually do is plug in this piece on the calculator, my input. The way you do that is you simply go here to the table, right here. You might get some funny stuff in there. If that happens, hit clear. Just clear that out. Now what I'm going to do is plug in my input, the whole left-hand side of the equation, where it says y equals. So we'll go x squared hit this button and then square it, plus 3x minus 6. At this point, go ahead and hit enter. Bring the cursor down to OK. Just hit this down arrow repeatedly until the OK is highlighted. Hit enter. Now, these are my input values on the table. You'll see a table come up, and the second column is my output values. Let me show you how to do this. Let's look at answer choice A. So if x is -1 right here, if my input's -1 and I plug that in here and here, will I get my output of -2 right here? Let's go to the calculator and locate -1. Let's see what comes out. So I'm going to go down, just hit my down arrow till I get to -1 on my input right here and see if I get out a -2. Well, no. With the -1, I get out a -8, and I need to get out a -2. So A's gone. Let's go to B. And now we're going to have an input of -4 and see if we get out a -2. So we'll go to -4 in the first column. Just scroll this way to -4. And what do I get out? Well, the corresponding value is -2, which is my output, and that's what I need. So 4 works. 4 works. Now I need to check the x value of 1. So if I plug in a 1 for x here, do I get out a -2? So we'll go to 1 on the table. I'll just hit my down arrow until I see an input of 1, or an x value of 1, which is right here, which matches up with this. And with that 1, do I also get out a -2? Sure enough, it's over here. I get out a -2 as well, and B is my answer. Now you can move on if you want to. I want to explain one thing so you understand this. What this is really saying is if I plug in -4 for x here, I will get out a -2. In other words, -4 squared plus 3 times -4 take away 6 gives us a -2. And if I also plug in a 1 for x here, I'll get out a -2. In other words, if I plug in 1 for x, 1 squared plus 3 times 1 minus 6, you will get out a -2. It'll equal -2. You can go through the math and actually check that. But for the GED test for a problem like this, I highly recommend you use the calculator because the test is timed. Let's move on. Question 21. The function below represents the number of students absent from school due to the flu, where x represents the day. According to the equation, how many students are absent on day 6? This is a good time to highlight that final question. It's asking how many students are absent on day 6. So this represents students that are absent. In other words, are there 6 students absent on day 6? Are there 20 students absent on day 6? And so on. It says here that x represents the day. We're dealing with day 6. So basically, x equals 6. So I'm going to just plug this 6 right here to x here and here. And whatever I get out will tell us how many students are absent. Now you're probably wondering what this means right here. In reality, we don't need to even worry about this. This is function notation. It means f at x. But let's just focus on this right-hand side here. I am going to show you how to store 6 in for x on the calculator. Let's go over here. Let's clear this out. So I'm just going to quit to get back to my home screen. So hit second mode. We want to store 6 in for x. This is how you do it. Hit 6, storage, then hit this letter button with the x right here. Then hit enter. Now in the calculator, the calculator knows that the value of x is actually 6. The final step is to enter this piece here, this right-hand side, into the calculator, and then we'll be done. So let's start with the -2. -2. Actually, you know what? Let's clear this out so it's easier to see. We'll start again. Just hit clear so the screen's clear. -2. Parenthesis. Open parenthesis here. 0.25 x squared. Just hit this button. Square it. -3. This is your subtraction button. 3. X. Just hit this. -5. Close off your parenthesis. Hit enter. And you get 28, which matches up with C. Question 22. Tim has T marbles, Ben has twice as many marbles as Tim, and Carla has 7 fewer marbles than Tim. Excuse me there. Which expression shows the ratio of Ben's marbles to Carla's marbles? I am going to highlight part of the final question. Ratio of Ben's marbles to Carla's marbles. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. So I'm comparing Ben's marbles to Carla's marbles using division. So that's what that means, and that's why our answer choices are set up like this. This will make sense in a second. So I asked a guiding question here. How many marbles does Tim have? It says right here, Tim has T marbles. Let's write that. Tim T marbles. Just means that Tim could have 10 marbles, 20 marbles, 50 marbles. I can replace this t with any amount of marbles. So we'll just leave it at t marbles. Now let's move over to Ben. How many marbles does Ben have? It says Ben has twice as many marbles as Tim. Twice as, right here, means to multiply by 2. So I'll take Tim's marbles, t, and multiply it by 2. Well, another way to write that is just 2t. Times 2 is the same as 2t. So now I know that Tim has t marbles, and Ben has 2t marbles. Now let's move over to Carla. It says here that Carla has 7 fewer marbles than Tim. Fewer implies subtraction. So how many marbles does Carla have? 7 fewer than Tim. So Tim has t marbles. 7 fewer than that is subtract 7. Let's break this down. Tim has t marbles. Ben has 2t marbles. Carla has t minus 7 marbles. We want the ratio of Ben to Carla. So let's see. Ben is on top here, so his marbles are represented by 2t. Carla's down here at the bottom. She's represented by t minus 7. That's my answer. Which one does that match up with? Answer choice D. I want to show you a quick test-taking tip. Let's say you don't know how to do this problem or you're running out of time. Clear this out really quickly. You should notice that the word fewer is in this problem. Fewer implies subtraction. So I need to have the subtraction operation in my answer choice. And as you can see, answer choice A does not have a subtraction operation in it. So I would be able to eliminate answer choice A. And then if I need to guess, I have a better chance of guessing. Question 23. Which algebraic expression is equivalent to the phrase 7 less than the product of 4 and the quantity 3 more than a number? When I'm dealing with problems like this, the first thing I do is start with a number. In other words, in this phrase, I look for the wording a number, which shows up right here at the end of the phrase. Now, I don't know what this number is. It could be 50, it could be 60, it could be 10. So I'm going to use a variable to represent the number. I'll use the variable n. Why did I use n? Well, if you look in our answer choices, the letter n shows up. So in other words, n represents some number. So you start with a number, we'll represent it with the variable n. Now we're doing a whole bunch of stuff with this number, so I'm going to read this sentence backwards because a number shows up at the end of the sentence. So what are we doing with this number? Well, we're taking 3 more than the number, and I wrote that right here. Then from there, we're taking the product of 4 and all that, which I wrote here. And then from there, we're going to take 7 less than all of that, which I wrote here. So we start with the number. We represented that with n. And then the next part from up here is to take 3 more than that. How do you think I would write that? Well, we have some number. I'm going to represent that with n. 3 more than that means to add 3. That's how I would write that. When you're dealing with expressions, more than means to plus or to add. And we are dealing with an expression because it states it right here. Now I am going to show you a test-taking strategy, and I've been stressing this throughout the video. If you can narrow down your answer choices before finishing the problem, it increases your chances of guessing. So we're right here at n plus 3. I know that my answer choice has to contain an n plus 3 from right here, because it says right here I take 3 more than the number. I'm taking the number and adding 3 to it. So I go through each answer choice, and whichever one does not have an n plus 3, I can eliminate it. Well, let's look here. A has an n plus 3, keep it. B has an n plus 3 right here, keep it. C has an n minus 3, get rid of it. D does not have an n plus 3 right next to it. It's got to be right next to each other. It has an n minus 7 right here. The plus 3 is at the end. Get rid of it. Now, if you're not sure how to do the rest of the problem, go ahead and guess. Now you have a 50-50 chance of guessing. And ultimately, when you improve your chances of guessing, it's going to help your score. And that's ultimately my goal of this video, is to give you those test-taking strategies to help you pass this test. Now, with that being said, let's say we have the time and we want to narrow it down to the final answer choice. Let's just go to this next piece here. The next piece says the product of 4 and that quantity from up here. That quantity is just the piece above, the n plus 3. And this right here where it says that quantity implies that we're taking the entire n plus 3. So I'm going to put parentheses around it, and we're going to multiply it by 4, because product of 4 means to multiply by 4. So I will take this entire quantity, n plus 3, and multiply it by 4. I don't need to show the times sign. Right here. Product means to multiply. So I can find the final answer now. I know it has to contain 4 parentheses n plus 3, which matches up with the, well, actually the only one that contains that is B. If you look at A, it doesn't have the parentheses around it, so I can get rid of the A, and my answer is B. Just to finish this up, though, so you understand, if you were taking the test, I'd move on from here. It says to take 7 less than all of that. So the all of that is this piece above us, 4 quantity n plus 3. And less than, when you're dealing with expressions, means to subtract, and I'll subtract 7. And there you go. You can see it matches up exactly with B. Question 24. Lisbeth's phone plan costs a flat fee of $50 per month plus 12 cents per minute for any usage over 350 minutes. If her monthly budget is $110, what is the maximum number of minutes she can use her phone without exceeding her budget? Let's look at our answer choices so we know what they represent. Answer choice A represents 800 minutes. So this means, if this were the correct answer, that she could use her phone for 800 minutes, and the cost for that would not go over $110, and so on. Let's make a table of values to help us understand this problem. In the first column, I'll just put minutes, which represents how many minutes I use the phone, and the total cost. And just keep in mind this is for a 1-month period. It says right here, it's for the month. So let's say she used the phone for 0 minutes for that month. How much would her phone bill be when she gets it in the mail? It says Lisbeth's phone plan costs a flat fee of $50. So no matter how many minutes she uses the phone, she has to pay that flat fee of $50 each month. So if for that month she used it for 0 minutes, she'd still have to pay the flat fee of $50 from right here. Now, I brought up my calculator here because we're going to need it shortly. But let's just continue thinking here. What if her time of usage was 7 minutes? She used the cell phone for 7 minutes. What would her total cost be at the end of the month? Hopefully you see it would still be $50. It says here that Lizbeth's phone plan costs a flat fee of $50 per month plus 12 cents per minute for any usage over 350 minutes. So she can use her phone as much as she wants to up to 350 minutes and she will not be charged the 12 cents per minute. She's only charged the 12 cents if she goes over 350 minutes. That's what that means. But she's always charged every month that flat fee of $50. So using that thinking, let's say she used the phone for 349 minutes. What would the total cost be? Again, she's not charged unless she goes over 350 minutes. She's not charged for the 12 cents per minute, so this would still be $50. What if she used the phone for 350 minutes? What do you think? Still be $50. Again, she only is charged if she uses it over 350 minutes, and when she does that, it'll be 12 cents each minute. So based on that, how much would she be charged for 351 minutes? Well, what you do is you think in your mind, okay, how many minutes is this over 350? It's 1 minute over, so she'd be charged the $50 plus the 1 minute over times 12 cents per minute. And what would that total be? Well, you can plug that in. It would, hopefully you can see that would just be $50.12. You can plug this in, watch, 50 plus 1, because it's 1 minute over 350 times 12. I'm sorry, times 0.12. Now, let's just do one more. This is a tricky problem. Let's say it was 278, not 200, but something over 350. Let's say it was 483 minutes. The first step is I got to figure out how many minutes is this over 350. Well, we can subtract these two. Just take this number minus 350. So let me clear this. 483 minus 350. So 483 is 133 minutes over 350 minutes. So I'm charged just for the 133 minutes. So it would be the $50 plus 133. That's how many minutes 483 is over 350. It's 133 minutes over times the 12 cents per minute. From right here, 12 cents per minute for any usage over 350. Let's punch this in and see how much 483 minutes would cost us. So I'd go 50 plus 133 times, or you can use a set of parentheses. It's fine, same thing. I'll just use a set of parentheses, keep it the same. 0.12. Hit enter, and that would be 65.96. So in other words, if she used the phone for 483 months, at the end of the month she would be charged $65.96. However, her monthly budget is $110. She can't go over this amount. That's ultimately what the question is asking. What's the maximum amount of minutes she can use the phone without going over her monthly budget of $110? So, with all that being said, now I'm going to go to my answer choices. All this here in purple was just me explaining it. So let's change the color here. I'll put it in green, and this really applies to the problem. It says, what is the maximum number of minutes she can use the phone without going over $110? So since it says maximum, Let's start with our largest number of 875. Right here. I shouldn't circle that. I'll start with our maximum number, 875. How much would she be charged? Well, based on what I just showed you, you take this amount, 875, you're trying to figure out how much this is over 350. So go 875, subtract 350, hit enter. So she'll be charged for 525 minutes, so it would be the $50, flat fee per month times 525, is the point times the 12 cents. Punch that in and see where that gets us. So it's 50. Let me clear this out. 50 plus 525 parenthesis 0.12, enter. She can't go over $110, and she does here. She uses it for 875 minutes. The total cost is $113, but her budget is only $110. She can't spend more than $110, so D is gone. Let's go to C. That's 850 and see if that works. So I'm going to take the 850. I'm figuring out how much this goes over 350, so I'll take this number, subtract 350, hit enter. So she'll be charged for 500 minutes only if she uses it for 850 minutes. So it's 50 monthly fee each time plus 500 minutes times 0.12. See what that gives us. Let me clear this. This was 113, my bad. I forgot to write that there. 50 plus 500 times 12 cents. Hit enter and you get 110 exactly. So she can use the phone for 850 minutes because if she does, her phone bill will be $110, and that's the maximum amount she can spend. She can spend up to $110. So this is the maximum amount of minutes she can use the phone without going over her budget. Question 25. The table below shows the diameter in centimeters and number of servings for different sizes of circular pizza. Note, pizza size refers to the diameter. Question down here. To the nearest square centimeter, what is the area of a large pizza? That's what we're looking for, the area of a large pizza. The large pizza is here. The pizza size, which represents the diameter, is 39. So I'm just going to draw a circular pizza with a diameter of 39 centimeters. So the diameter is a line segment that goes through the center of the circle and it touches each edge of the circle. You can draw it here, you can draw it here, however you want. I'll just draw it straight across. The diameter is 39. You'll look on your formula sheet for the area of a circle, and it will say pi r squared. It's really a time sign here, it's just not showing, so it's the area of a circle equals pi times the radius squared. Well, the radius is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. In other words, the radius is half the diameter. So I can just take this 39 and divide it by 2 to get the radius. 39, the diameter divided by 2 gives us the radius, which is 19.5. And I'll just plug this into the formula. So the area equals pi, just bring this pi symbol down, times, replace the r with the radius, which is 19.5. It's 19.5. And then square it. and then just punch this side into the calculator, and you should be good to go. Let me clear this. Pi, there's your pi symbol right here, times 19.5 squared. 19.5, square it right here. Hit enter, and you get 1194. It says round to the nearest square centimeter, so I'll just drop this stuff off here and write down 1194. That matches up with C. Question 26. A candle is shaped like a cylinder with a diameter of 8 inches and a height of 12 inches. What is the total surface area of the candle rounded to the nearest square inch? So I'm looking for the surface area of a cylinder. And I took a snippet of the formula sheet that you'll have access to on the GED test. You'll see a part on there where it says surface area and volume. So we'll go to cylinder right here and look for surface area, which is right here. SA stands for surface area, right here. Over here would be the volume of a cylinder. So I'm going to be using this formula right here. We'll write the formula down up here. Surface area equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. R represents the radius, H represents the height, and there's really time signs all through here. You can put them in if you want. I'll put a little dot here. There's a time sign here, 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 and here. You don't have to do this. So this really means 2 times pi times the radius times the height plus 2 times pi times the radius squared. That's how you read that formula. You can draw a sketch of a cylinder. You really don't need to. We just need to plug the numbers into this side of the formula. So let's go ahead and do that. The surface area of a cylinder is 2 times pi. I'll just bring my pi symbol down. Times the radius. What is the radius? Well, it says here the diameter of the cylinder is 8 inches. Remember I told you prior that if the diameter equals 8, the radius is half that. Or you just divide this by 2. So what's half of 8? Or 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'll plug in 4 for the radius. Right here, I just replace this radius with 4 times the height. Now it tells us up here that the height is 12 inches. I'll replace the h with 12. Plus, bring down your 2, this is part of the formula, times pi, bring down your pi symbol, times the radius, which is 4, so replace r with 4, and bring down your squared sign. Now all you have to do is punch this in to the calculator, this side right here. You are good to go. So let's just punch that in. 2 times pi, I'll just use the pi symbol, times 4 times 12, plus 2 times pi times 4 squared. 4 squared. Hit enter. And you get this funny notation whenever that happens. I've told you, don't stress about this. Just hit your toggle button so it looks like your answer choices. So 128 pi, hit this toggle button, and you get about 402. Because it says round to the nearest square inch. So I'll just drop off this stuff to the right of the decimal. 402 is the surface area, which matches up with letter B. Question 27. A postal worker sold 40 stamps for $25.20. Some were 60-cent stamps and some were 70-cent stamps. How many 70-cent stamps were there? Great time to highlight that final question. We want to know how many 70 stamps were there. So now I know my answer choices represent the number of 70-cent stamps. Set up a table ahead of time just to organize our thinking. So let's use our answer choices to help us. Let's start with the answer choice A. Saying that we sold 5 70-cent stamps. So in this table here, I have a column for number of 60-cent stamps, number of 70-cent stamps. So if we use answer choice A, the number of 70-cent stamps is 5. I'll put that here. So if we sold 5 70-cent stamps, how many 60-cent stamps did I sell? What do you think? Well, it says the postal worker sold a total of 40 stamps. So these two have to add up to 40 because there's a total of 40 stamps. So if I have 5 70-cent stamps, I must have 35 60-cent stamps because 35 plus 5 totals to 40 stamps. And now the cost for all of this has to total to $25.20. So how would I figure out the cost of 35 60-cent stamps and 5 70-cent stamps? Let's just think about this. Each stamp here, what this means is each stamp is 60 cents, and I have 35 of them. So what I'll do is I'll just take the 60 cents, the cost for one stamp, times 35. Right, 60 cents is 0.60. From right here. And I have 35 of them, so times 35. Plus, how many 70-cent stamps do I have? I have 5 of them. So this means that each stamp is 70 cents. Another way to look at this is we have 5 70-cent stamps. I mean, think about it. You would go 70 cents plus 70 cents plus 70 cents plus 70 cents 5 times. Well, I don't like to do repeated addition. This just means 70 cents times 5 right here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the 70 cents times the number of stamps, 5. 0.70 times 5. I'll punch this into my calculator. If I get out 2520, then A is my answer choice. So let's clear this out. So we take 60 cents from right here, multiply that by the number of 60-cent stamps I have, which is 35, plus, from right here, 70 cents times 5. And that equals $24.50. Write that here. $24.50 does not match up with the total cost of $25.20, so A is gone. I'm going to just move through my answer choices now. Let's go to B. If we have 12 70-cent stamps, then how many 60-cent stamps do I have? Remember, the total has to be 40 because we sold 40 stamps. So I can just go 40 minus 12. You can do that on your calculator. 40 take away 12 is 28. You can double check that by adding 28 plus 12. You'll get 40. So now we have 60-cent stamps. So I'll take my 60 cents from right here, multiply that by the number of 60-cent stamps, 28, plus the 70-cent stamps, 0.70. The number of 70-cent stamps in this case is 12. We'll see what that equals. If that comes out to 2520, B is my answer. Let's clear this. I'll punch this in right here. 60 cents times 28 plus 70 cents times 12. Hit enter, and we get 25.2. You can tack a 0 on to the end of that. It doesn't change anything. So does this match up with the total cost here? Yeah, $25.20, and that's how much the cost was up here, $25.20. They match up, so B is my answer. Question 28. A back-to-school deal gives 15% off backpacks that originally cost $33.60. What is the sales price of the backpack to the nearest cent? Good time to highlight that final question. Asking for the sales price or the new price after the discount. So that's what our answer choices represent. Price after discount. That's what the sales price means. Price of backpack after discount for the deal. So in other words, our answer choices are telling us what the new price of the backpack is after there's a 15% discount. Will the new price of the backpack be $5.04 or $28.56? There's probably one answer choice I think I can eliminate right away if I need to guess here. I mean, the backpack's $33.60. It's just a 15% discount. I don't think the new price would be this low. So A could probably go, and then you'd have a better chance of guessing. But with that being said, let me show you how to deal with these types of problems. I draw a diagram like so. It's good practice to kind of memorize these diagrams for this type of problem. Put the part here, the total here, and the percentage here. And the stuff that's next to each other, the total and the percentage, you're going to multiply it. And the stuff that's on top of each other, that's kind of stacked on top of each other, the part and the total, there's really division signs here. Here and here, and here and here. So keep that in mind. Now let's fill in this little diagram. I'm going to draw it again. See if we can fill it in. The total is just going to represent the total cost of the backpack originally, which would be $33.60. So this will be $33.60. Right here, I'll replace this total here with $33.60. And the percent, well, which number has a percent symbol next to it? It's the 15. So I'll put the percentage piece here, which is 15%. The part is going to represent how much was discounted or how much was taken off the original price. I don't know this piece here, so I'm going to use the diagram to help me find this. Again, as I told you, it's really a times sign here because these two are next to each other, and there's division signs here because these are stacked on top of each other. So these two numbers are these two numbers are next to each other, so I'm going to multiply the 33.60 times the 15%. Whatever I get, we'll put here. This will be my part. So 3360 from here times 15%. 15, my percent symbol's here. It's right above the parenthesis. Just hit your green button. Now all the symbols above the buttons are in play. So second parenthesis. You can see the percent symbol was added in there. Hit enter, and I get 504. Now this represents the part or the discount. It's not asking for the discount. It's asking for the price after the discount. If the answer, or if the question says, what is the discount, then your answer choice would be A. So careful here. It's not A. The original price was $33.60 from right here. $33.60, the original price. It's a discount, so I'm going to subtract the part. I'll subtract this discount. Minus 504. Let's do this piece here. 3360. The original price of the backpack minus the part or the discount 504. Enter, and it's $28.56. And that is the new price of the backpack, $28.56, which is B. A quick note here, let's say the question had stated that the backpack, instead of having a discount of 15%, was increased by 15%. If that were the case, you would have done the problem exactly the same, but you would have taken the part here and you would have added it to the original price of $33.60. So that's how you would deal with the increase. Question 29. Daniel is working on a school art project using a rectangular sheet of paper that is 8 inches wide and 12 inches long. He wants to make a different size version of the rectangular sheet that is proportional in size to his original 8 by 12 sheet. Below is a list of possible dimensions. So 6 by 10, 4 by 6, 10 by 16, and 6 by 9. From the list above, identify the dimensions that are proportional to the original 8 by 12 sheet. Write your answers in the box below. There's a lot here kind of going on, a lot of wording, but basically this is what they're asking. He has an 8 by 12 sheet. And he wants to either increase the size of that sheet or decrease it so it's proportional to this. And the list of numbers we have are from here, 6 by 10, 4 by 6, from here, 10 by 16, 6 by 9. So as you can see, when it says his original sheet here is 8 by 12, I can write that as a fraction, 8 over 12. 6 by 10, I can write that as 6 over 10. So I want to know which ones are proportional to this. So really what I'm going to do is reduce the fractions on my calculator, and whichever ones come out the same, I'll write in the box. That's pretty much it here. So let me hit the clear button here. We're going to start with 8 over 12. I'm going to type that in as a fraction. Here's my fraction button, 8 on top. Hit your down arrow, 12 on the bottom. And hit enter, and you get 2/3. Now I'll reduce each one of these, and if they come out to 2/3, whichever ones actually come out to 2/3, I'll just write that in the box and I'm done. So let's go ahead and do that. And the next one is 6 over 10. Hit your fraction button, 6 over, let me try that again. Fraction button, 6 on top, 10 on bottom. Hit enter, that comes out to 3/5. So this one does not work, does not match up with 2/3. Let's do 4 over 6. And you might see that 4 over 6 does work. I mean, you can see if you double 2, you get 4, and if you double 3, you get 6. But let's use the calculator. Let me clear this out so it's just easier to read. Let's do 4 over 6. That gives us 2/3. So this one checks. Let's do 10 over 16. Hit enter. That gives us 5/8. That does not work. It's got to match up with this one. And 6 over 9, let's try that. This gives us 2/3 as well. This checks. So the ones that are proportional to 8/12 are 4 over 6 and 6 over 9. Because when I reduce 8 over 12 on the calculator, I get 2/3. When I reduce 4 over 6, I get 2/3. And when I reduce 6 over 9, I get 2/3. That's what proportional means. So I would write in the box this one, 4 by 6. And 6 by 9. Question number 30. A phone plan charges a flat fee of $15 plus 10 cents for each minute of calls. This relationship can be represented by the equation y equals 0.10x plus 15, where y is the total bill and x is the number of minutes used. If the total bill is $25, how many minutes were used? I'm going to highlight that final question here. How many minutes were used? In other words, answer choices represent minutes. So if I use the phone for 100 minutes, would it cost me $25? Or if I use the phone for 110 minutes, would it cost me $25? That's what's going on here. There's more than one way to do this. I'm going to show you how to use a calculator. When you have equations like this, many times you can punch this into the calculator when it says y equals something. In this case, y equals 0.10x plus 15. So I'm going to enter that. In other words, I'm going to enter this equation into the calculator. Hit your table button. There might be some stuff in here, so hit clear. And then if you notice, we have y equals, well, that's this piece. And then I just need to enter the 0.10x plus 15. 0.10x. Sure, this matches up with this. Now, after this, I'm going to hit the enter button. And I'm going to scroll down to OK. Or I'll keep hitting enter till OK is highlighted. I like to hit my down arrow. And I'll do that. The OK is highlighted, hit enter. And for my X values, which represent the minutes, I want to know if 100 minutes gives me $25. So I've got to find the X value of 100. So I just need to keep scrolling down to 100. But boy, that takes a while. You can do that. A more efficient way to do it is to go back to your table. So hit table. You'll notice the same equation shows up. Hit enter. And just change your starting value here, which now is at 12. Just change that to 100. Let's start the table at 100. So I just switch this to 100. And the step value 1 just means the table's going up by 1. So now that I have it starting at 100, hit your down arrow repeatedly until you get to the OK. Hit enter and check it out. Now my table starts at 100. Well, pretty much done. When I look at the table, 100 minutes, right here. What's the output value? $25, which is what I want. So A is my answer. Just so you understand further, let's go down to 110. If I go down to 110, the output value is 26. So what this means is that if I use the phone for 110 minutes, it would be $26. But again, A has to be my answer because if I use the phone for 100 minutes, it's $25. As we can see, it just happened to show up right away. So A is my final answer, and I move on. And again, there's other ways to do this, but I find this way to be the quickest. Question 31. What is the equation of the line that has a slope of 5 and passes through the point -2, 3? Let's look at this point first, -2, 3. This is an ordered pair because the two numbers are enclosed by parentheses. So the first number, -2, is your x coordinate, and the second number here is your y coordinate. In other words, x equals -2 from here, and y equals 3. I'm going to plug these numbers into each one of my answer choices and see if I get out a true statement. So let's do that first. In my calculator, I'm going to store -2 for x and 3 for y as follows. So let's start here with the -2. Type in negative right here, 2. Hit your storage button. Then hit this button once and the x will show up. Hit enter. Now x has the value of -2. Then I'm going to store in 3 for y as follows. Punch in 3, hit your storage button, then you're going to have to hit this button twice. Because watch, when I hit it once, it has 3 stored for x, but I want -2 stored for x. Hit it again and the y will show up. Now it says y is stored with 3, and I hit enter. So you can look at your calculator, x is stored with -2, y is stored with 3, that's how I want it. And we hit enter, so it's stored over here. We're good to go. Now what I'm going to do is go over to my answer choices, and I'm going to punch in the calculator x minus 3y right here. If I get out a -13, I will keep A as my answer choice. I'm going to hit clear right here. When you clear it, it doesn't affect the storage. X is still stored with -2 and y is still stored with 3. Let's type in x minus 5y from right here. So x minus 5. And then you're going to have to hit this button twice because the first time you hit it, x shows up. When you hit it again, y shows up. And now I have x minus 5y, which matches up with this. I hit enter, and I get out a -17. But I need to get out a -13. So A is gone. It doesn't work. Now we'll go to B. We're going to type in now this piece, 5x minus y. I'm going to hit clear. 5x minus y as follows. 5x minus y. Hit this button twice. Matches up with this, and I'm going to hit enter, and if I get out a -13, I will keep B. So hit enter. Sure enough, when I punch in 5x minus y here, I get out a -13 here, so I'm going to keep B. Keep it. And I'm going to go through the same process with C and D. Type in x plus 5y. See if you get out a 13. If you do, keep C. If you don't, get rid of it. X plus 5y. Hit enter. I get out a 13, and I needed to get out a 13, so I keep C, and then we'll do the same process with D. 5x plus y. If I get out a 13, I keep it. If I don't, I get rid of it. So I'm going to type in 5x plus y. 5x plus y, hit this twice, hit enter, And when I punch in a 5x plus y, I get out a negative 7. And this is 5x plus y. When I punch it in, I should get out a 13. Doesn't match. D is gone. At this point, you have a 50-50 chance of guessing. And if you're not strong in algebra, I would guess at this point. Now, if your algebra skills are pretty good, I'm going to show you the next piece of this. We're going to look at the slope. The slope is 5. These equations are written in standard form. Standard form looks like this. ax plus by equals c. That's standard form. This is not on your formula sheet, but this is the quickest way to do these problems. So I'm going to look at equation B because I'm down to B and C. And B says 5x minus y equals negative 13. So I need to identify my A value and my B value. The A value is 5, so A equals 5. Because the x is multiplied by 5. And the A value is what the x is multiplied by. The B value is what the y is multiplied by. There's really a 1 here. It's not showing. So the y is multiplied by minus 1. You want to include that minus sign right here. So the B value is minus 1 or negative 1. Sometimes I interchange those. Now when it's written in standard form, the slope equals negative A divided by B. All right, so I'm going to bring my negative sign over here. The A value is 5. So I replaced A with 5. Divided by my B value. My B value is negative 1. Well, negative 5 divided by negative 1 is 5. And this is my slope. And that matches up with what it says the slope is here. It's 5, so B is my answer. If you went through the same process with C, you would not get a slope of 5. And right here, you can really punch this piece in the calculator. You can go negative 5 divided by negative 1. And you see, you get 5, which matches up with the slope here. Question 32. What is the equation of the line that passes through the points negative 3, 3 and 3, negative 5? Let's look at our answer choices, and you should notice that each answer choice says y equals. Example, answer choice A says y equals some stuff. So does B, y equals some stuff. This is a great time to use your calculator. Whenever it says y equals, just go to your table button right here. Let me clear this out first. Hit table, and y equals shows up here. See that? Hit clear. And what I'm going to do is punch in each equation. Let's start with equation A. Y equals negative 5/3 x minus 4/3. Let me show you how to punch this into the calculator. You already have the y equals right here. That's what showed up when you hit the table button. Now I'm going to put in negative 5/3 x minus 4/3. So this is a negative sign right here. Negative. Fraction button right here. 5 on top. Hit your down arrow, 3 on the bottom. 5/3. Then x. Now you need to get your cursor back to its normal position. It's down at the bottom here. So to do that, just hit your right arrow. And now I can punch in my x right here. Now don't worry in this problem what number stored in for x. That doesn't matter. You just want your x to show up here. Then this says minus 4/3. So now I'm going to use my minus button. Fraction. 4/3. 4, hit your down arrow, 3. You can hit your right arrow to get the cursor back in its normal position here, or just hit enter. At this point, it doesn't matter. I'm going to hit enter. Once I hit enter, I get this pops up, and the starting value on my table is going to be -3. That's fine. If you want to, you can start it at 0. Just hit 0. You don't have to do this, or you could have kept that at -3. Now, when I go down to OK, you'll see that the table starts at 0, and it goes up by 1 each time. Don't worry about this stuff here. Hit your down arrow repeatedly until the OK is highlighted. Hit Enter. Now I have a table of values. And let me show you what we're looking for here. I'm going to highlight this first point. We're looking for -3, 3 on the table. So this would be my first column, my x value, and this number here would be my second value, or the second column, or the y value. So if I see a -3 in the first column and a 3 in the second column, I'm good to go. If not, I can eliminate a. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We need to get to -3. Right now we're at 0 because our table started at 0. I'll hit this up arrow until it says -3. And in the second column, I need to see a 3. Well, I don't. I see an 11/3. So this point, what that's telling us is the equation doesn't pass through this point. And really, I can eliminate a at this point. So that's what I'm going to do. So a is gone. Now what I'm going to do is check b and see if it works. Simply go back to table here. Punch in this new equation, -3/4 x minus 2, just like you did this one. So you can hit clear just to start over if you want to. -3/4 x, I'll do this a little quicker, 3/4 minus 2. Hit enter. Our table starts at -3. That makes sense. That's where we left off. I'll just keep it at -3 this time. Hit your down arrow repeatedly till it says OK. Hit enter. Now let's see. Let's go to -3 again. I'm already at -3. In the second column, do I have a 3? No, it says -3 1/4. This would need to say a 3. It doesn't, so B's gone. I just keep going through this process. Let's go back to table. We'll punch in this now, -4/3 x minus 2/3. Hit clear, fraction. Ooh, you got to hit your negative sign first before you hit the fraction button. Negative fraction 4. Right arrow, x minus 2/3. Hit enter, go down to OK. Let's see, -3. Nope, -3 3. This is -3 10/3. Again, in the first column, I have a -3. In the second column, I need to see a 3. I don't. I see a 10/3. So C's gone, and D is my answer. Now, let's go through D, because I want to show you why it's the answer. Let's go back to table. Go ahead and punch this in, -4/3 x minus 1. I'm going to hit clear. X 1. Check this out now. -3. -3, second column 3, yeah, right here. So -3 3. That means that this equation goes through this point. We didn't even have to deal with this second point, but let's check it. We should see 3, -5 on the table. So let's go to +3. I'll just hit my down arrow. +3 is in the first column, and I need to see a -5 in my second column, and I do right here. So that tells me that this line here, if I were to graph it, goes through each one of these points, and that's technically why D is my answer. Now, when you're taking the real GED test, once you've eliminated these 3 choices, you can circle D, and you don't need to go through this step. One quick teaching point that I want to clarify is if you're taking the GED test, and let's say you're testing these points out like I did, let's say the first one worked, right? That doesn't mean it would be your answer choices. Both of these have to show up on the table, which they did for D. You should have noticed that. So each one of these points has to show up on the table for your answer to be correct. Question 33. What is the slope of a line that is parallel to the equation 3x plus 4y equals 8? Well, you should notice that this is not written as y equals something. It's actually written in standard form, so I really am not able to use my table function on the calculator, because when you hit table it says y equals something. So I'm going to show you what I think is the quickest way to do this. It's just straight up algebra here. It's what I showed you earlier. An equation is written in standard form when it's in the form ax plus by equals c. Now this is not on the formula sheet for the GED, but it's the quickest way to do these problems. This is one thing you might want to remember if your algebra skills are strong. If you're struggling with algebra, this is a type of problem you probably just want to give it your best guess so you don't spend too much time on it. But with that being said, let's write this equation. Right below this standard form, it's 3x plus 4y equals 8. My a value is 3. Right here, right? Whatever the x is multiplied by is your a value. What do you think my b value is? Well, the b value is whatever the y is multiplied by, and the y is multiplied by plus 4 from right here. So the b value is 4. We don't need to worry about the c value here. Now, if there were a minus sign here, then the b value would be minus 4, but it's a plus sign. Now I simply need to find the slope. As I showed you earlier, the slope is negative a over b. So let's just substitute these in. So bring over your negative sign right here. Your a value is 3. Your b value is 4, so replace b with 4. So the slope is negative 3/4. Now, careful here. There is a negative 3/4 here. Is that your answer? Whenever it says what is the slope of the line that is parallel, whatever you get here is going to be your answer. So parallel, yeah, right here. I said that multiple times. So this is technically your answer, negative 3/4, and you're done. Real quick, another teaching point. This question might be worded a little differently on the GED test. You might not even see the word parallel. It might just say something like this. It might say, what is the slope of a line that has the equation 3x plus 4y equals 4? You might not even see the word parallel. It might not even be in there. If that's the case, you do it the same way. Your answer would still be negative 3/4. Or it might say, instead of parallel, it might say perpendicular. For example, it might say, what is the slope of a line that is perpendicular to this equation? If that happens, what you do is you take this answer and you flip it. You do a flippy-whippy. You put the 4 on top, you put the 3 on the bottom, and then you take the opposite of it. So since the parallel slope is negative, the perpendicular would be positive, or 4/3. So you do a flippy whippy, flip these, and then take the opposite of whatever your answer is here. So if this had said perpendicular, your answer actually would have been 4/3. It would have been D. Question 34. Solve the equation for x. Here's the equation. 3x squared plus 5x equals 7. And we have all these funny looking answer choices with plus minus symbols in their square roots. When you see something like this on the test, you're going to want to use the quadratic formula. It'll show up on your formula sheet. This is a snippet of the formula sheet. Under algebra, it says quadratic formula, and it's right here. So you don't need to memorize this. I just want you to become familiar with this sheet. I'm actually going to delete this now. So let me write down the quadratic formula that's on the formula sheet. X equals negative b minus b squared minus 4ac. This means 4 times a times c. They just don't show the multiplication symbols. Divided by 2a, which means 2 times a. So we just need to find the values for a, b, and c, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we can use the calculator. So we have this equation right up here. You write this equation down here. 3x squared plus 5x equals 7. I left a space here intentionally because when you're dealing with the quadratic formula, this piece here, the stuff over here, needs to be equal to 0, and it's equal to some number 7 other than 0. So just move this to the other side of the equal sign. And when you do that, this is really positive. There's no sign. You switch the sign. It becomes minus 7. And since I moved it, it goes away. It just becomes 0. So the equation, it becomes 3x squared plus 5x minus 7 equals 0. So keep that in mind. I'm going to rewrite that a little neater. X squared plus 5x minus 7 equals 0. And then I just need to identify my a value and my b value and my c value from the formula. So the a value is whatever the x squared is multiplied by when it's written in this form. So the x squared is multiplied by 3, so my a is 3. The b value is whatever the x is multiplied by. The x is multiplied by 5. So my b value is 5. And then the c value is this number here that doesn't have a letter next to it, which is minus 7. Make sure you include that minus sign right here, so it's c is minus 7. And now what I'm going to do is take these values and store them into the calculator, like we did in some previous problems. So let's store 3 for A, 5 for B, negative 7 for C. Go over here, punch in 3, hit your storage button, and then hit this button repeatedly until it says A. So the first time I hit it, it says X. Hit it again, it says Y. Hit it again, it says Z. Hit it again, it says T. Hit it again, it says A. Now I'm good to go. The 3 is stored with A. Don't forget to hit enter next. Then I store 5 for B. So hit 5 from right here. Storage. Then hit this repeatedly until the letter up here says B. It says X. Keep hitting it. It says Y. Keep hitting it. It says Z. It says T. It says A. Hit it again. Great. It says B. So 5 is stored with B right here. Hit enter. And then we'll store -7 with C. This is negative, so hit negative here, 7. And then hit your storage button right here, and then hit it repeatedly till it says C. So X, it says Y. Or it says C, hit enter. Now I can go ahead and enter this quadratic formula with these values into the calculator. So let's clear this out now that we have everything stored. And remember, when we clear it, it doesn't affect what's stored in the calculator. So we have the quadratic formula. You should notice there's a top part and a bottom part. So I'm going to hit my fraction button first. We're just going to plug this in. So -b, negative. We'll hit this button till it says B repeatedly. It says -b, that matches with this. Then it says plus or minus. You can use the plus operation or the minus operation. I suggest using the plus operation. So let's do that. So plus square root right here, which is right above the x squared. Hit the second button, x squared. And now I'm going to punch in b squared. So hit this repeatedly till it says b. There it says b right here, which matches up with this, and then square it. Here's your squared button. Minus. This means 4 times a times c. So the 4, enter that from the formula, times a. A is stored in here, so just hit this till it says a. Oop, I went too far, so just keep going till it says a. It says a there. Then times c, times c. Hit this repeatedly till it says c. Go down to the bottom, just hit your down arrow, and type in 2 times a or 2a. I'll do 2 times a. 2 times a. Ooh, I went too far again. There we go. So make sure this matches up with this. And it does, and then just hit enter. Here's my answer here, and you might see that that matches up with A. Now, if you're not sure or understand why I circled A, let me explain. I'm just going to clear this all out here. My answer from the calculator. Square root 109 minus 5 divided by 6. There's really a plus sign here. It's not showing. Now this is an expression. It's not an equation, so I can rewrite it. I can put the 5 in front, but I don't switch the sign because I'm not moving anything from one side of the equal sign to the other. So I can rewrite this as -5 plus the square root of 109 divided by 6. All I did was reposition the -5 to put it in front. That's all. I didn't switch any signs because it's not an equation. Now hopefully you can see it clearly matches up with A. The only difference is I have a plus minus here, and here I just have a plus. That's okay. So my final answer is A. Question 35. The community park just set up a circular trampoline for kids to play. The diameter of the jumping mat is 36 inches. What is the circumference of the jumping mat? Square inches, rounded to the nearest whole number. So let's say you're taking the GED Math test. Come up with this problem. You have a formula sheet that you can access. I took a snippet of it right here. Which formula you think you're going to use here to help you answer this question? Well, let's see. We're dealing with the circle. And we're given the diameter of the circle is 36 inches. And we're looking for the circumference. So based on that, go on my formula sheet. I see circumference of a circle. So I'm going to use one of these formulas here. either this one or this one. And since they give us the diameter, I'll use the formula that has diameter in it, which is this one right here. If they gave us the radius, I would use this one here. So I'm going to use this one here, which says circumference equals pi d. Circumference equals pi d. They're right next to each other. There's really a time sign here. It's not shown. I'll put it in. So let's just go ahead and do this. The circumference, just bring this down, equals pi. Bring your pi symbol down, times the diameter, and the diameter is 36 inches. I just replace the diameter with 36 from right here. Just plug this piece into the calculator, this right here. Let's go ahead and do that. So we have pi times 36. Hit enter, and you get 36 pi. To multiply that out, as I've told you earlier, just hit your toggle button right here. That'll get it into a number you're familiar with. So I'll hit this button, and I get 113. I don't need to include the decimals because it says round to the nearest whole number. So I'll just drop these decimals off, and the circumference is right at about 113, which matches up with B. Quick teaching note down here. When you're looking at this formula again, remember the R in this formula, I hope you can see that, represents the radius, and the D represents the diameter. So if this had given you the radius instead of the diameter of the trampoline, you would have used this formula over here, 2 times pi times R. Let's move on. Question 36. Factor completely 3x squared minus 14x minus 5. I'm given a whole bunch of answer choices in factored form. This is a great time to use the plug-in strategy. I'm going to show you how to use that in a second. I'm thinking in my head, I've got the letter x in my problem, and I've got the letter x in my answer choices, so I'm thinking plug-in strategy. Or another way to look at this, if you have a problem like this on the GED where it says to factor something, you have your answer choices like this, think again, plug-in strategy. So I'm going to just pick some random number for x here. I can let x equal 2, 3, or 4. I try to stay away from 0 and 1 in these types of problems. So 2, 3, or 4 is a good number to pick for x. I'm just going to go with 2. I'm going to say let x equal 2. So I need to store in the calculator the value 2 for x. I've shown you how to do that previously. Let's come down here, hit 2. Actually, let me clear this out. Clear this. 2 store for x. So I have this matching up with this. Then I hit enter. Now the calculator knows that the value of x is 2. Why 2? Because that's what I chose. I could have picked another number like 3 or 4. Let's hit clear. And again, when you hit clear, that doesn't mess up your storage function. X still has the value of 2. I'm going to punch this into my calculator. So let's do that. 3 x squared minus 14x minus 5. Hit enter. I get negative 21. So when I plug in 2 for x here and here, I get out a negative 21. This is my output. This is my target answer. That's what I like to call it. Target answer. So whichever one of these, when I plug it in, gets me out a negative 21, good to go. And that will be my answer. Let's punch in answer choice A. I'm going to hit clear. Open parenthesis. 3x minus 1. Close parenthesis. Then open parenthesis. X plus 5. X plus 5. Close your parenthesis. Hit enter. We're looking for a target answer of negative 21 on the calculator. This came out to be 35. It doesn't match up with the negative 21. So A is gone because this gave us that 35, right? We want negative 21. Let's go to B. Hit clear. Let's punch this in. I'll punch it in quicker. 3x plus 1 and then x minus 5. 3x plus 1 x minus 5. Make sure this matches up with this. Hit enter and I get negative 21. That matches up with my target answer, right? I got this out here. So since this matches up with this, B has to be my answer choice. And I circle B and I move on. Now I want to show you something. I get a lot of questions here and you can move on if you want to, but students say, what happens if I pick a different number other than 2? Let's say I pick 3 or 4. Well, what will happen is you'll get out a different target answer, but it'll still work with B. Let me do that really quick. Let me just clear this. And I'm going to pick a different target answer. I'm sorry, a different number for x. Remember, when we picked 2 for x, just keep this in your mind, we got out a target answer of negative 21. How about if I pick, I don't know, I could pick 3, 4, 5. I'll pick 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'll hit clear it. And I need to store in 4 for x now. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll hit 4, store x, and hit enter. Now, the 4 is stored in for x instead of 2. I'll hit clear. Let's punch this in and watch what happens. I'm going to do this more quickly. I'll go 3x squared minus 14x minus 5. 3x squared minus minus 5. I hit enter. And look what I get out now. I now get out the target answer of negative 13. So this becomes like my new target, right? This is my target answer now. Before, when I plugged in 2, I got out a negative 21. But when I plugged in 4, I got out a negative 13. That's okay. It's still going to all work out. You're still going to get answer choice B. Trust me, when I plug in A like I did prior, you will not get out a negative 13. You can do that if you want to. Let's go to B again. Watch what happens here. It's kind of cool. I'm going to plug in B, parenthesis 3 plus, I'm sorry, 3x plus 1, then x minus 5. Is that out? Hit enter and check it out. I get negative 13, which matches up with my new target of negative 13. See, they match up here. So B still is my answer. It's just you get different numbers when you, for your target answer when you plug in different numbers for x, but everything all still works out and you will get B as your answer. Let's move on. Question 37. This graph here shows the height of a drone at different times during its flight. What is the drone's average speed in meters per minute from 10 to 20 minutes? So you want to always look at your answer choices and see if there's anything you can eliminate. I don't see anything off the top of my head. And also you want to make sure you understand what your answer choices mean. For example, answer choice A means that the drone is traveling 0.5 meters in 1 minute. Answer choice B means that the drone is traveling 10 meters in 1 minute, and so on. So based on that, let's move on to the actual problem. We want to know the average speed from 10 to 20 minutes. So from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, this interval right here. I'm going to connect this with a straight line. Now, if you see a problem like this on the GED Math test and it says average speed, think change of distance divided by the change in the time. This is something you'll probably want to remember. So what is the change in distance? Well, the distance in this problem represents the height above the ground in meters. So in this time interval, how did the distance change? Let's see, it went from 10 meters, i.e. it was 10 meters above the ground, or its distance above the ground was 10 meters, to 15 meters. So that's a change of 5 meters. It bumped up from 10 meters to 15 meters. So the change in the distance above the ground, or the height above the ground, is 5. What's the change in time? The time's down here. Well, let's see, it's from 10 to 20, which is right here. It's also in the question. Well, in other words, it bumped up from 10 to 20. That's a change of 10 minutes. So the time is 10. So this is really my answer. I just need to divide it on the calculator. So I'll go 5 divided by 10. 5 divided by 10 gives us 0.5 or 0.5, which matches up with A. Question 38. To remain eligible for a basketball team, a player must average at least 20 points per game over 5 games. The table below shows the player's score in 4 games. What is the minimum number of points the player must score in game 3 to remain eligible? So he must average at least 20 points per game over 5 games. Excuse me. At least 20 points per game means he must have an average of 20 points or more. And it says here in the question, what is the minimum number of points, or the smallest amount of points the player must score in game 3 to remain eligible? So we'll start with our smallest answer choice, A, which is 20. We'll just use our answer choices to help us. And I wrote down what average is down here. You can read that. Let me clear this out. So let's assume, and again, you need to know what your answer choices represent. They represent from here the number of points he needs to score in game 3. So let's look at answer choice A, and it's 20, so I'll put a 20 here. We'll find the average of the points for the 5 games and see if it's 20 points or more. If it is, then A is our answer. So to find the average, you add up all the points down here at the bottom. So I'll do that. 22 plus 18 plus 20 plus 16 plus 17. 22 plus 18, right? 22 plus 18 plus 20 plus 16. And make sure after you're done adding them, you hit enter before you do the division, or it won't come out right. So hit enter. Then it says down here, you divide by how many numbers there are. Well, how many numbers are there? Well, there's 5 games, so there's 5 numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll divide by, really in this case, the number of games, 5. Right here, I just divided by 5. Hit enter, and I get 18.6. This doesn't work because the average needs to be 20 points or more. So A is gone. Now I'm just going to assume that we need to work with B. So let's do that. We'll erase this. And now let's say he scores 25 points in game 3. If he scores 25 points in game 3, will his average be 20 points or more? So we'll do the same process, clear this out, add these up, and divide by 5. So 22 plus 18 plus, now it's 25 instead of 20, 16 plus 17. Divide by the number of games. Now, careful again, I almost did it. I almost divided by 5 here. You have to hit enter first before you divide. Enter gives us 98, and then take that and divide it by 5. And that gives us 19.6. Well, that's not an average of 20 points or more. This is below 20. So this is gone. And these represent my averages here. Let's just keep going till we get the right answer. We'll now try C, which is 27. So 22 plus 18. 18 plus, now it's 27 plus 16 plus 17. Hit enter, divide by 5, and this gives us 20. So C has to be my answer. In other words, if he scores 27 points in game 3, his average will be 20 points, and it says here his average must be 20 points or more. That's what at least means right here. At least means at 20 points or more, so C is my answer. Now, some students have asked me, why is D not the answer? Because if you plug in 30 here, his average will be above 20 points. The reason D is not the answer, even though it works, if he scored 30 points in game 3, he would be eligible, is in the final question, it says, what is the minimum number of points? So the minimum number, the smallest amount of points he needs to score in game 3 is 27 points to remain eligible. Question 39. A fish tank is shaped like a rectangular prism. Its volume is 720 cubic inches. If the length of the tank is 12.5 inches and its width is 8 inches, what is the height in inches of the tank? I highlighted the final. Now I know that my answer choices represent the height of the fish tank. In other words, is the height 6 inches? Is it 7 inches? And so on. Now I took a snippet of the formula sheet that you will have access to on the GED Math test. Which formula do you think you will use for this? Well, we have rectangular prism, so that's right here. And we're dealing with volume of a rectangular prism, so that would be this formula over here. V represents the volume. If we were dealing with surface area of a rectangular prism, we would use this formula. So I'm going to write this formula down. Volume equals length times width times height. Length times width times height. Remember, there's time signs here. It's just not showing right here. So let's use our answer choices to help us here. First of all, V represents volume. We're given the volume. It says the volume is 720. So I'll replace V 720. Bring down your equal sign. Let's see, L represents the length. We're given the length. It says the length is 12.5. So I'll replace L with 12.5. Times The width, are we given the width? Yeah, we're given the width here. It says the width is 8 inches. Place the W here. I won't put an arrow here this time. The W with 8 times the height. Are we given the height? No. It says what is the height, but one of these are the height. So we'll use our answer choices to help us. Let's see if the height is 6. So I will replace height with 6. And what I'm going to do is multiply this out here and see if I use 6 as the height, if I multiply that with the width and the length here, if I get out 720, then A will be my answer. So let's just plug this into the calculator. 12.5 times 8 times 6. Now I'm going to show you how to enter 12.5 as a fraction, as a mixed fraction. It's really easier if you use 12.5 and recognize that that's the same as 12.5. But for now, let me just show you how to enter it just like you see it. So we have 12.5. So your mixed fraction button's right up here above the fraction button. So just hit second fraction and you get these 3 boxes. So I'll enter 12 in this box. Then I'll hit my right arrow to get to the top box and I'll put in a 1. Hit your down arrow, put in a 2. And now to get your cursor back in its normal position up here, so it's no longer at the bottom, hit your right arrow. So 12.5 times 8 times 6. Hit enter, and if it comes out 720, A is my answer. Nope, I got 600, not 720. That does not match with this, so A is not my answer. A is gone. So let's just keep going. Let's try answer choice B, which is 7. So I'll replace the height now with 7. And I'll see when I multiply this out, if I get 720, I'm good to go. This time I'm just going to use, instead of 12.5, I'll use 12.5. It's just easier to punch in. So 12.5 or 12.5 times 8 times 7. And that 7 came from my answer choice here. If I hit enter and get out of 720, B is my answer. I get 700. I don't get 720. That does not match with this. So B is not my answer, and I just move on to C. Replace the height with 7.2 from here. And let's punch this in. 12.5 times 8 times 7.2. And that gives us 720. This matches with this, so my answer has to be C. Because when I use a height of 7.2 and I multiply that with the length and the width, I get out 720, which is what the volume is. Question 40. A dog walker charges $18 per hour for walking dogs and also earns a $50 bonus if they walk more than a certain number of dogs X in a week. This week they work 25 hours. Which inequality shows how many dogs X they must walk to earn more than $600 this week? For a problem like this, I am going to use my answer choices and eliminate ones that don't make sense. So let's look at this final sentence here. There's a really helpful thing right here. He has to earn more than $600. So I am going to look at my inequalities below and see which one has something in it that indicates more than $600. When you're dealing with inequalities, more than means greater than, which is written like this. That is the greater than symbol. And it has to be more than 600. You want to memorize what your inequalities mean. So really what I'm looking for is something like this in my answer choice. This means more than $600 or greater than $600. If it does not have this little piece in my inequality, I can eliminate it. So let's go to answer choice A. Does it have this? Yeah, it says right here. Greater than or more than $600. So I keep A. What about B? No, this means less than $600. That does not match up with this from here. So B I can get rid of. What about C? Yep, C has this piece in it right here. So I keep C. What about D? C, greater than 600. Nope, this has a less than 600 right here. So D is gone. So just to review, our inequality needed to say more than $600 from right here. This means more than $600. So I kept A, right, because this says more than $600. I got rid of B because this says less than $600. This inequality symbol was reversed. I kept C because this says more than $600, which matches up with this. And I got rid of D because this says less than $600, which does not match up with this. Now if you need to guess, you have a 50-50 chance of guessing. Go ahead and guess if you need to. But let's go ahead and narrow it down to the final answer choice. Let's go back up here. It says a dog walker charges $18 per hour. From right here. Now, does it say anywhere how many hours he worked? We're looking through here. Yeah, it says he worked 25 hours right here. So, if he makes $18 every hour, and he works 25 hours, well, what you can do is add 18 25 times 18. So he makes $18 in 1 hour. And then if he works another hour, he makes another 18. And you could just add this up 25 times. 18 hours for 25 hours. Well, I don't want to do that. That takes forever, right? So remember, addition or multiplication is repeated addition. I'm just taking the 18 25 times, so I'll take 18 times 25. So I need now to have this piece in my answer choice. So let's go to answer choice A and see if I see 18 times 25 anywhere here. Yeah, I do right here. Look, I see it right here. Remember, 18 times 25 is the same as 25 times 18. You can reorder multiplication. It doesn't change anything. So you can rewrite this like this. Think about it. 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So what that tells me is that I keep answer choice A because I have a 25 times 18 in it. Let's go to answer choice C. Again, we've eliminated B and D. Do we have an 18 times 25 or a 25 times 18 in answer choice C? No, we have a 25 times 50. So C cannot be my answer choice because of this piece right here. I get rid of C. So A has to be my final answer because I've eliminated all the other answer choices. Question 41. Solve the equation here for x. If you're good at algebra, go ahead and solve this. But if you're struggling with this, just use your answer choices. Because one of these has to be the correct answer. So what I'm going to do is start with the answer choice A. And I'm going to plug in -2 for x here and -2 for x here and see if I get out the same thing. So watch how I go about this. I'm going to store -2 for x in my calculator. We've done this before. So -2, here's your negative symbol. Hit storage. Hit this button, X. Hit enter to store it. And now x is stored with -2. I'm starting with the answer choice A. Hit clear. Again, that doesn't mess up anything. And what I'm going to do is punch in each side of the equation. Punch in this side first and see what I get out. So let's just punch in 4x minus 3. Remember, this equal sign here kind of is like a wall. It separates your left-hand side from your right-hand side. So I'm going to punch in 4x minus 3. So 4x minus 3. Hit enter. I get a -11. So when I punched in the left-hand side, I got out a -11. Now I'm going to punch in the right-hand side over here. If I get out the same thing on the right-hand side, A is my answer. So let's punch this side in. 3. I'm going to hit clear. 3. Open parenthesis. 5 minus x. Close your parenthesis. Hit enter. And I get out a 21. These didn't come out the same, so A is gone. A can't be my answer. And I'm just going to continue this process till I get the same thing out on the left side as I do on the right side. Erase these. Now what we need to do is store 2 in for x instead of -2. So we'll do that. Let's clear. Store in 2 now. 2 storage for x. Right here. Don't forget to hit enter to store it. Now 2 is stored for x, which matches up with this. With the answer, I'm using answer choice B. Clear this. Now punch in the left-hand side, 4x minus 3. 4 from here minus 3. Hit enter. I get out a 5. Now I'll enter the right-hand side. If I get out a 5, then B has to be my answer choice. So this is, hit clear here. 3 from here, close parenthesis, 5 minus x. This was open parenthesis. I said close parenthesis earlier, and this is a close parenthesis. Close that out. Make sure this matches up with this. Hit enter, and I get 9. These don't match. These have to come out exactly the same, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, for me to pick that answer. So B's gone. Now we're going to go to C. Erase this. Oop. Button. Now I need to store an 18/7 for x. So hit clear. So punch in 18/7. That's a fraction. Hit your fraction button. Hit 18 on the top from here. Hit your down arrow to get to the bottom. Put in 7 from right here. Put in 7. Shows up here. Make sure this matches up with this. Hit your storage button. Actually, I don't like this cursor down on the bottom. It's not a big deal sometimes, but I'm going to just get this to its normal position by hitting the right arrow. Now hit storage. hit X. Now X is stored with 18/7. Don't forget to hit Enter. You're good to go. Now let's punch in the left-hand side. I'll hit Clear. 4x minus 3. I'll do this a little quicker. 4x minus 3. Again, make sure this matches up with this. Hit Enter. I get 51/7. And now let's punch in the right-hand side. I'll hit Clear. 3, close, open parentheses, 5 minus x, close parenthesis. Hit Enter. And before you hit Enter, make sure that this matches up with this. Hit Enter, and I get 51/7. So when I use C, I got the same thing on the left-hand side as the right-hand side. And that indicates that C has to be my answer. Because 51/7 on the left-hand side, 51/7 on the right-hand side, they match up. I circle C, and I move on. Question 42. A delivery truck traveled 120 miles at a speed of r miles per hour. Then it traveled another 180 miles at a speed of 10 miles per hour faster than the first speed. Which expression represents the total number of hours traveled? I'm going to highlight the final question. Total number of hours traveled. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So which formula, I took a snippet of the formula sheet here. Which formula do you think would help you solve this problem? Well, if you notice, we're dealing with the amount of miles a truck traveled, which represents distance. We're dealing with speed, which implies rate, and it asks for the total number of hours or time that the truck traveled. When you see problems like this with distance, time, rate, speed, you're going to want to use the distance formula, which is D equals RT. So I'm going to write that down. D equals RT. There's a time sign here. It's not showing. D represents distance. Equals R represents rate or speed. That's what rate means in this problem. Times T, which represents the time. Now, it's asking for the total number of hours the truck traveled. Time is measured in hours, so we're really trying to figure out the total time the truck traveled. So I need to solve this for time. So if you notice on the right-hand side of this equation here, it says that the time is multiplied by the rate. To undo multiplication, you use division. So I'll divide this side by the rate because I want to get the time by itself because we're looking for time. So what you do to one side, you do to the other side. So I'll divide the other side by rate. Rates drop off. And now what it's really saying is time equals the distance divided by the rate. I'm just going to write that backwards. It's easier to read. So time equals distance divided by rate. And you may want to just remember this when you're dealing with problems like this so you don't have to go through solving all of this. I'm going to rewrite that on the top. Time equals distance divided by the rate. Let's go back up here. It initially says that the truck traveled 120 miles. From right here. So this represents distance, or D. So I want to replace the distance here with the 120. Divided by the rate or the speed of the truck. Do we know the speed of the truck initially? It says the speed or the rate of the truck is r miles per hour. So we don't know the rate or the speed, so I'm just going to rewrite this instead of rate, I'll just rewrite it with an r because I have an r right here. So the rate is just really r, it's unknown. So look, my answer choice more than likely needs to contain 120 divided by r. Let's see. Does A contain a 120 divided by r? Yeah. See, 120 divided by r? Yeah, it shows up right here. So keep A. What about B, C, and D? No. B, C, and D do not contain a 120 divided by r. So more than likely, I can eliminate B, C, D. I circle A and move on. But let's be sure here. I want to double check something. We want the total time, right? Total implies addition. So I'm going to add on to this the second part of what the truck did. It says it traveled another 180 miles. So this is the second part of the trip. So this is the distance on the second part, or D. So I'll add on distance of 180, so plus 180. So I replace this now with 180 divided by the rate. Well, the second part of its trip, it says the rate is 10 miles per hour faster than the first speed. Well, the first speed was r from up here. Let's bring this over. 10 miles per hour faster just means I add 10 miles per hour to it. And this represents our total time, which you can now see exactly matches up with A. However, if I were taking the test, I would have stopped right here. Once I had this 120 divided by r and I saw that only in answer choice A, I would have circled A and moved on. Question number 43. A town tracked its water usage in thousands of gallons over several months. In March, usage was 200,000 gallons. In April, it dropped a little bit but stayed above 150,000 gallons. In May, water usage was about half of April's. In June, it rained a lot, so water usage was reduced to less than half of May's. In July, usage was lower than June. Which graph correctly represents this? Let's just break this down and start at the beginning. This is a town tracked its water usage in thousands of gallons over several months. In March, usage was 200,000 gallons. So let's see if we can eliminate anything at this point. March has to be at 200,000 gallons. So let's look at graph A. Here's March right here. Let's see, it measured at 200. And remember, this really means 200,000. It says here it's measured in thousands of gallons. It also says that here. So this 200 represents 200,000 gallons. So I can't eliminate A because the water usage was 200,000. What about B? Can I eliminate B? I go to March again. I go to the top. It's at 200,000. Same with C. It appears to be at 200,000. Same with D. Appears to be at 200,000. So I can't eliminate anything at this point. Let's move on. In April, it dropped a little bit, but stayed above 150,000 gallons. So in April, it stayed above 150,000 gallons. I'm just looking for 150 because it's measured in thousands of gallons. So April has to be above 150. So let's look at April now. April, here's April. Is this above 150, this bar? Yeah, it's higher than 150. 150 is right here and it goes above that. So keep A. What about B? Is B above 150? No, 150 is here. As you can see, the bar is lower than 150. So B's gone. Let's look at April. It's got to be above the 150. This is above the 150. So I keep C. And what about D? See, D is above the 150 as well, as you can see. So I've eliminated one answer choice. Let's keep going. And we will move to this part. in May, water usage was about half of April's. Highlight that piece. In May, water usage was half of April's. So let's go ahead and look at April and May. So here's May. Here's April. So I'm looking at these 2 months. May is half of April. So here's May. Here's April. You can see just visually that May is half the size of April. You can just see that visually. So I'm going to keep A. Let's look at this one here. April, May. Does May appear to be half the size of April? Yeah, you can see that. If I cut April in half here, I get about the size of May. What about C? April, May. Well, let's cut April in half. If I cut April in half, it's about right here. So May would have to be, I'm just estimating, May would have to be only this high. It's too high. Hopefully you can visually see that May is not half of April. So C's gone. Then we go to D. It appears here, yeah, that May is half of April visually. So I keep D. So now I have a 50-50 chance. Let's go to the next part of the sentence. It says, in June, it rained a lot, so water usage was reduced to less than half of May's. I don't know. I find this sentence confusing right here. This one right here I find confusing. So you know what? I'm going to skip this sentence and just move to the last one and see if it's easier to understand. The last sentence states, in July, usage was lower than June. Oh, for me, that's easier to understand right here. In July, usage was lower than June. All right, so let's go to our last answer choices remaining. Remember, B and C we eliminated. So the water usage in July is basically lower than June. Is that true with A? Let's see, here's July's water usage. Here's June's. Yep, July is definitely lower than June. You can just see the height of the bar graphs. July's height is a lower height than June, so July's lower than June, so it's probably A. But let's look at it. It'll be A, but let's look at D as well. Is July lower than June? No. Here you can see that July is higher than June, so D is gone, and A is my final answer. Question 44. What is the slope of the graphed line? Slope measures steepness. And slope is either positive or negative. And you can quickly tell by looking at the line. When you read a line, you always read it from left to right. Just like text, you read it from left to right. So you start at your farthest left point, which is right here. And then you go, as I stated earlier, from left to right. And hopefully you can see based on that that this is slanting downward. So if I were walking on this line, I'd be walking downward, which indicates a negative slope. So I know my answer choice has to contain a negative sign in it because the line is slanting downward from left to right. So any answer choice that doesn't have a negative sign in it, I can eliminate. Well, you should quickly see that C is gone because there's no negative sign in it, and D is gone. There's no negative sign in it. And now I have a 50-50 chance of guessing. But let's break this down. And let me give you the definition of slope. It's the rise over the run. The rise is either up or down, depending. And arrows like so. It's either up or down. And the run is across, either to the right or to the left. So Using this concept, I'll narrow my answer choice down. And what you're going to want to do is pick 2 points on this line that fall exactly where the grid lines cross. So I always start at my farthest left part of my graph, and I just move down until I see where the line crosses the grid lines exactly. You should see it crosses here exactly. Keep moving down, and it crosses here exactly. Once I pick 2 points that cross the grid lines, I'm good to go. You can also pick this point. There's another one right here. It crosses right here too. So this point would work too. You could really use any 2 points. You could use these 2 points. You could use these 2 points. You could even use this point and this point. But to make it simple, I always pick the first 2 points that I see when I'm reading the line from left to right. So we'll just use these 2 points. Now I need to connect these 2 points using what I call a slope triangle. So watch how this works. I'm going to start here at my farthest left point, and I'm going to move down right here because I want it to line up with this point over here. So I move down 2, 1, 2, so that's -2. And then from here, I got to move across until I hit this point right here, which is 1, 2, 3. And I move to the right, so it's really +3. So it's the rise, which was down 2, over the run, which was to the right 3. So it's -2/3, which matches up with answer choice B. And remember, -2/3 is the exact same thing as -2/3 like this. You can position this negative sign wherever you want. Really quickly, at this point in the game, you really didn't need to even concern yourself with the negative sign because we already established the slope was negative. You just really needed to look at the numbers 2 and 3. The 2 has to be on top, the 3 is on the bottom. Quick teaching point. This might happen on the GED Math test. If you notice when we're looking at this graph, the x-axis is going up by 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so is the y-axis, 1, 2, 3. You can see that by the numbers. Sometimes they count by different intervals. Let me explain. Say instead the y-axis was counting by 2, so let's say this was a 2, and this was a 4, and this was a 6, and let's say the x-axis stayed counting by 1, and that can change too. And let's say it was the exact same problem. What would the slope be now, though? And again, this is just a teaching moment in case this pops up on the test. Let's put our points in the same spot as they were before, here and here, and we'd make our slope triangle like I did. Now be really careful here. If my y-axis is now being counted by 2, it would be changed down here as well. This would be -2, -4, -6. What would this be? Well, a lot of students don't look at these numbers over here. They automatically go 1, 2. But now if I were counting by 2, right, this would be -2, -4. I didn't change what I was counting by on the x-axis. We're still counting by 1, so this would be 1, 2, 3. So now the slope, if the interval changed on the x-axis and each interval counted as 2, the slope would now be -4/3. So you got to look at what you're counting by before you jump into the problem. That's just a quick note that I want to help you with in case you see something like that on the GED Math test. One more quick teaching note. Clear this out and we'll go back to our original intervals of counting by 1. At the beginning of this video, I stated you could really pick any points that fall on the grid line. So I read it from left to right. I picked this point, And then I picked this point. When you're taking the GED test, I recommend you stop there and make your slope triangle. But you could also pick this point. And I had one student use this point and this point that, if you notice, all three fall where the grid lines cross. And he decided not to use this point. And he said to me that he didn't get the correct answer. So watch what happens here. I'll do my slope triangle again. From here, I'll move down and then to the right. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So since I moved down, it's -4. And then I move to the right from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's to the right, so it's positive. So you have -4 and 6. So it's my rise, -4. Here over my run, 6. And the student I had said, well, that's not the same as this. Well, it is if you reduce it. Watch, because this could technically pop up too, where you get something like this and you don't see it on the answer choices. You just punch this into the calculator. Wrong calculator. Let me use this one. And punch in -4/6. Hit your fraction button. -4. Hit your down arrow. 6. Hit enter to reduce it, and look, this comes out to -2/3, so it comes out the same. Just another quick teaching note. Question 45. The cost of granola bars from 3 companies is shown below. Box below, write the company that charges the most per bar. Company that charges the most per bar. And by the way, I don't know if this was on your practice test, but these would be labeled. It should say number of bars on this axis here and the cost in dollars over here. I don't think number of bars and costs were included. You could write those in. Those would be included on the test. There's a little hint down here. It says charges per bar or granola bar. That's what the bar means. So that implies that I'm going to have the charges on top, or the cost or charges, same thing, because I see that first. Per in this situation means division, and then the bar would be on the bottom because that's the last part I see. So keep this ratio in mind. This is how I'm going to set up each one of these, with the cost on the top and the number of bars on the bottom. So based on that, let's look at this first graph. You should notice it goes through 0, 0. That makes it easier. That just implies that the granolas, the great granolas, the candy bars, where it's shipped to me, there's no shipping charge. And for a problem like this, I don't think you would have one. So that makes it easier. So I can just figure out the cost per bar. How much would it be here? So based on what I just told you, we're going to put the bars on the bottom. So let's see, 4 bars, right, from right here. I'm using this point. 4 bars, put that on the bottom from here. Cost, how much here? This is going to be $6. So I'll put the cost on top. Here, this is 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. I did that wrong. Let me do that again. This would be 2, 0, 2, 4. This would be 6, 8, 10. So again, you should see that 4 bars on the bottom cost $6. Cost on top. And we just divide this out. You could have also used this point. You'll get the same thing when you divide it out. If you do the 8 bars for $12, you'll get the same thing when you divide it. So let's divide this. 6 divided by 4. It's 1.50. 1.5, you can tack a 0 on. So for great granolas, the cost is $1.50 per bar. I'll just put that up here. Now let's do the same thing here. And again, we're not going to assume there's a shipping charge, so that makes it easier. We just bought these at the store. So this says that 5 bars cost $7.25. So we have the cost on top. So the cost is over here. So $7.25 divided by 5. Again, if there were a shipping charge, this would be a little different, this problem. So I just divide this out to get the cost per bar. So $7.25 divided by 5. And that equals $1.45. So this is $1.45. Again, you could have taken $14.50 divided by 10. I'll do that real quick to show you. You get the same thing, $14.50 divided by 10. You get $1.45 as well. See that? Now, if you divided these out and didn't get the same thing, again, that would imply that there's some sort of shipping charge, and you'd have to use your slope formula. You'd have to find the change of x divided by the change in y, but that's not what's going on here. Let's find the cost here for top bar. Let's see, so the cost is $19.20 divided by the number of bars. It says a box have 12 bars, so it's divided by 12. Clear this out, 19.20 divided by 12. Enter, and I get 1.6. Can tack a 0 on, that's 160. So it says here in the box below, write the company that charges the most per bar. It would be Top Bar. It's $1.60 per bar, which is more than these two. So I would write in the box or drag into the box Top Bar. Question 46. A balloon is descending at a constant rate. The table below shows its height, y in meters, after x minutes. You are given the following numbers and variable. Put the correct numbers and variable into each blank to complete the equation. Couple things here. Descending means going down. You can see that. At 1 minute, the balloon is 8.4 meters above the ground. At 3 minutes, it's 7.2 meters, and so on. It's descending at a constant rate. When you see the word constant rate in a problem like this, it implies y equals mx plus b, which is on your formula sheet, but you need to recognize that. So we have the y equals here. The m would go here, the x would go here, and the b would go here. But we're going to need to put some stuff in this box, so what I'm going to do is write this on top of the boxes. Plus, the plus is here, b. So the m represents the rate at which it's descending. It really represents the slope or rate of change. So I know right off the bat, since the balloon is going down, that the rate of change, m, or the slope, m, has to be negative. So I'm either going to drag this one or this one into this box. So let me show you how to calculate this m right here from this equation. And really what m is it's telling us how many meters does the balloon go down in 1 second. That's really what I'm trying to figure out. And you need to remember that when you're dealing with that concept, it's the change of y over the change of x. Change in x. This is kind of the definition of slope. So let's look at y, which represents the height. How is the height changing each time? Hopefully you can see just by looking at it, it's going down by 1.2. Of y is going down, which is negative, by 1. Now, how did I get that? Well, you might be able to figure that out in your head. If you go 8.4 minus 1.2, you'll get 7.2, and so on. You might be able to see it. Or another way to do it is you can subtract the numbers. When I'm doing this, I kind of like to start at the bottom of the table. Let's take the bottom number, 4.8. and subtract the number right above it, 6.0. That's negative 1.2. That's one way to get it. Or you could go 6.0 divided by, or 6.0 minus 7.2. That'll give you negative 1.2. Or 7.2 minus 8.4 will give you negative 1.2. Another way to look at it is if you have 8.4 and you subtract, and you take away the 1.2, it'll give us 7.2. Watch this. Let me just show you. So I have 8.4, and it's going down by 1.2. See, that gives us the next number in the table, and so on. So many ways to do that. So that's my change of y. What's my change in x? Well, let's see. It looks like I went from 1 to 3, and then from 3 to 5, and then from 5 to 7. So it looks like x is changing by 2 minutes. It's going up by 2 minutes. Hopefully you can just clearly see that. That's easier numbers to see. If we started at 1 and we bump it up by 2, I get 3. If I have 3 and I bump it up by 2, I get 5. So the change in x is 2. And it's positive because the minutes are going up. And the time is measured in minutes, so this is really 2 minutes. I'll write that in there. And the change of y was negative 1.2, which is the y value is measured in meters. So I should put my meters in here. So this is just telling us that every 2 minutes, the balloon descends or goes down by negative 1.2 meters. Well, we need to divide this out, so let's do that. Let's go negative 1.2 divided by 2. So negative 1.2 divided by 2. Hit enter, and you get negative 0.6 right here. This is now telling us that the balloon descends negative 0.6 meters every 1 minute. And that represents our slope, or our m right here. This is our m. So I'm going to drag this negative 0.6 in for m right here. You'll have to drag it in. I'll just write it in. Now, when you're dealing with this problem, the only numbers you need to really fill in are the m and the b. The x is going to stay x for this type of problem. So you'll just drag this x into this box here. This will stay the same. Why? Because the x values are constantly changing, so x is just a variable. So just remember, if you see a problem like this, you'll just be replacing numbers in for m and b, and the x part will stay the same. Now we need to figure out the b. What does the b represent? Well, let me tell you. It represents the initial height of the balloon, or the height of the balloon at time 0. So I'm going to go back. Just 1 minute from 1 to 0. So notice here I was counting by 2, but from here to here is just a jump of 1 minute. So what do you think the height of the balloon would be at time 0? Well, this is the piece you need to look at, right? This is telling us that each minute, the balloon goes down by 0.6 meters. So what I'm going to do is take this 8.4, and since I'm going backwards, I'm going to have to add 0.6. So I'll take 8.4, let me clear this from here, and I'll add this number plus 0.6. That's going to give us 9. So at time 0, the height of the balloon was 9 meters. And I'll drag that 9 into here, right here. And I'm done. That would be my equation. Now I want to make sure you understand this piece because we went back 1 minute. You can look at it this way as well. If you take 9 and subtract this 0.6, you'll get the height of the balloon after 1 minute. Let's just do that to check. So if I go 9, take away 0.6, I get 8.4. And that works because each minute, remember this is a jump of 1 minute here, but then it starts going by 2. But each minute it goes down by 0.6. And if I go 9, take away 0.6, I get the 8.4, which checks here. Well, I really hope you do a great job on the GED Math test. And remember, the goal of the GED Math test is not to get every question right. It's to use these test-taking strategies to help you pass the test. And that's been the main goal of my videos, and I hope you've learned a lot of math as well. So good luck when you take the test.